She went under the wheels.
Perfected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And today we have a special guest joining us. We've got the composer of our music, Mike. Not to be confused with music Mike. Sorry about that, Mike. Go ahead.
It's all good.
What have you been up to lately, Mike?
Oh man, I'm just chilling, this quarantine stuff. Just
Yeah.
hanging out, watching movies.
Yeah, that's what we all have been doing. We've all been, I'm sure we've been dreaming of the day that we can go out. And speaking of dreams, in today's episode, we are...
What a segue.
Oh man! Oh my God! Gosh, I was sure everyone's hoping we dreamed up a better segue than that. As we look into Inception, Christopher Nolan's, well, one of Christopher Nolan's best movies. It's safe to say, but they came out in 2011?
2010.
2010. So it's been a decade, and so we should, because it would have come out soon, right? If it what's the release date of Inception? If anyone has it up.
July 13th.
Oh, so we're only a couple months off. That's okay. Yeah. We're close to the 10-year anniversary of Inception.
Well, I was gonna say he tends to target July releases for everything. Like I think Dunkirk came out in July. Tenants supposed to come out either late June or early July.
Yeah, that's being pushed back though. Probably. To 2001. Yeah, that's true. A lot of his movies, like he really, or at least WB really likes to capitalize on the summer release dates for his movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Inception's our movie of the of the hour, I guess, of the week. And if you're listening and you haven't watched it lately, or at least I suggest going back and rewatching it and then listening to this, just because. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch. And if you haven't seen it in a while, it's worth a rewatch. You can watch it right now on Netflix, which doesn't sponsor us, but probably should. And yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, with that said, but before we get into the discourse on Inception, Gabe, what have you been watching lately?
So recently I watched, there's a movie called Atlantics, which is there were 4 movies that came out in 2019 that got their own Criterion release, and I'd heard of 3 of them, and not this one. But it's I'm trying to figure out where it takes place. Oh yeah, it takes place on the Ivory Coast, and it's in whatever kind of hodgepodge language they speak over there. And it's really weird, but it's good. It's like a romance mixed with a ghost story with a lot of surrealist touches. It's really stylish and really interesting. It's kind of hard to. It's a very unusual movie, so it's a bit hard to describe because it's not a traditional Hollywood movie, so it's probably got a lot of different components to it. Well, it's like the furthest thing from a traditional Hollywood movie. Because it's got a very dreamlike pace where it can be very slow and meditative, and then just jump across suddenly it's an hour later, a day later, whatever, without really signaling to you that the time's changed. That you just kind of have to pick it up from context. It's also it kind of shifts point of view between characters very freely, which. I don't know, it creates a very interesting portrait of this town that it takes place in. So basically the story is there's a big billionaire real estate developer who's building a massive tower for a big old hotel. And he's not paying his workers to build it, so they go on strike. And eventually they're fed up of going on strike, so they all hop on a janky boat and try to go to Spain and search for a better life. So it's basically about one of the workers his girlfriend, essentially, who's supposed to be getting married to another wealthy guy, and their relationship and how it changes when he goes out to sea to try and make it to Spain, and then all of the workers sort of die in a boating misadventure, and then their ghosts come back to possess the women of the town and hassle this billionaire for their pay.
What?
Yeah. It's really interesting. And then it's also about this girl who, you know, her lover's dead, and she sort of believes he's still out there somehow, and keeps trying to reconnect with him. And then there's like a series of mysterious crimes being committed in the town, as well as these ghosts returning to hassle this billionaire. And she ends up getting like framed for one of the crimes, which was committed against her husband. So there's like a detective who's trying to like squeeze information out of her, and the detective also believes that her boyfriend is still out there. Yeah, it's like, if my explanation of this movie sounds like a stream of consciousness mess, it's because this movie is it's very complicated, it's very subtle, and it's very hard to talk about. It's a movie you just have to see, and it's worth seeing because it is really good. It wears a lot of its metaphors very brazenly, and there's a lot of, I don't know, it's very somber and meditative, like I said, but there's some parts that seem almost kind of slapsticky. Like the detective who is after this woman and her boyfriend, who may or may not be dead, is also suffering from a mysterious illness. And whenever he gets like an attack of this illness, he goes like full on Harrison Ford, like, you know? So that kind of is like a weird, it weirdly throws you out of the vibe of the movie, because everything else is very surreal and dreamlike. It feels like you're watching, or not even, it feels like you're in a dream when you're watching it. And I mean that in a good way. I understand that could be interpreted as bad, but I mean it in a good way.
You said it feels like a dream?
Yeah, it feels like a dream.
That's very on topic this week.
Yeah, it's really good. Oh yeah, the other three movies that were getting a Criterion release are The Irishman, Marriage Story, and American Factory, that lame Obama documentary.
Wait, which one's American Factory?
It's a documentary about American factories and how they're changing in the 21st century.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was like produced or executive produced by the Obamas or something, which I think is the only reason it's getting a shitload of attention.
Yeah. I was gonna say it was nominated for an Academy Award, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's why it was.
Yeah. Well, because like, you know how like every president can be reduced to a stock character. Like Ronald Reagan was the senile president. Bill Clinton was the sexual predator president. George W. Bush was the stupid president. And then Barack Obama was like the celebrity president, you know?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say Barack Obama was the brown suit wearing pinless president, right? No, I'm pretty sure wouldn't Obama just like, if we did have to reduce it, wouldn't he be like just the black president at this point?
No, because I mean, maybe, but for some people, sure. But I think more generally, if you're looking at his sort of the characteristics that were ascribed to him, not just the fact that he's half black, he was kind of like the cool, you know, movie star kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Even though Ronald Reagan was an actual movie star, it's just he was, you know, A, possibly senile, or B, possibly a psychopath, depending on how you interpret his weird dotterings. Because there's that whole scene at the end of American Psycho where he's like, I don't recall, blah, blah, blah. Like he's being grilled on all of the like war crimes that his administration has committed around the world. And he's like, I don't recall. And, you know, the businessmen in the movie are like, you know, or one of them's like, I don't believe him for a second. He's just as ruthless as us. He's just really good at pretending he's this senile old man so people will leave him alone. But he's probably ordering all these war crimes to be committed around the world.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Gabe's hot take on Ronald Reagan as filtered through Bret Easton Ellis.
Yeah, Iran-Contra, hashtag never forget.
Did you actually watch? So you've seen American Factory?
No. I have no desire to ever watch American Factory.
Oh, okay.
Because remember, on our we talked about this when we talked about Tiger King. I don't like documentaries. I don't like politically driven documentaries. Yeah, they're lame.
Yeah.
So next, what I watched was Dead Ringers, David Cronenberg. I love David Cronenberg, Canada's golden boy. And it's pretty good. Jeremy Irons plays twins, and he does a really good job of kind of differentiating the twins from each other, similar to how Tom Hardy did a really good job of differentiating his twins from each other in Legend. Although Jeremy Irons did not have the kind of advantage of, one looking kind of different from the other with like prosthetics and stuff. The twins look identical, and he has to distinguish them through their mannerisms, which he does a really good job of. It's not like a big body horror movie, which was kind of disappointing, but it's still good. The dynamic between the twins is really interesting, and how they have an almost parasitic effect on each other. And then the ending's kind of weird.
Oh no, David Cronenberg having a weird ending.
I know, all his movies have or at least a lot of his early movies, I should say, have very kind of anticlimactic endings. I mean, Videodrome has kind of a ending. Scanners is a really disappointing ending.
I would say most of Cronenberg's movies, even now, have kind of like ho-hum endings, like The Path to the Stars. Like, it just kind of like is like, okay, it's time to wrap everything up, and it kind of wraps up in a very unsatisfying way.
Yeah.
I mean, even like I love Eastern Promises and I love A History of Violence, but even both of those, it's like,
how dare you besmirch the name of Eastern Promises by offering up a criticism?
How dare you criticize that perfect movie? No, that's another movie that just kind of like, it just kind of chooses a spot to end, and they're like, this is where it ends.
I have no problem with the ending of Eastern Promises. I love that movie.
Hey man, don't get me wrong. I love a good Stephen Knight written movie. So I appreciate it, but I was always like, especially the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, oh, so Mike, have you seen Eastern Promises?
I have not.
Oh, when spoilers happens and spoilers, and then it just kind of spoilers, that's
It does sort of peter out to an extent, but petering out is the logical thing to do.
Yeah, I guess
what's happened before. It's the ending that they set up.
I mean, it's the ending that fits, I guess, well enough, but it's still kind of like, I don't know. Especially with a movie that's that kind of like brutal and everything like that. It's like to have it end kind of with like, I don't know. It's not the worst offender. I mean, like Existence had a very strange ending as well. But at least it explained why Jude Law had such a horrible American accent throughout the whole movie. Or Canadian. Was he faking a Canadian accent in that movie?
I wouldn't know. I haven't seen it.
Oh.
I've seen a lot of Cronenberg's early movies, and I've seen some of his more recent movies, but there's like a middle period that I haven't seen anything.
Yeah. The period where he was really making weird, where he was like having people have sex with like scars and legs and like video game equipment and stuff like that. You tuned out from that.
Wait, which movie is that?
So he did Crash with with James Spader and Holly Hunter. And that's all about, like, I didn't see that one all the way through. I kind of started watching it, but it's about, did you see that one, Gabe?
No. So I've seen like the body horror phase.
Okay.
Up until like right before The Fly. I haven't seen The Fly. And then I didn't see anything in between when he was doing kind of more dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
And then I started to see more of his more recent things, like Eastern Promises.
Gotcha. Existence is weird, and it came out the same year as The Matrix, and it's about like video games, virtual reality, and the video game thing they use, the Existence. Mm-hmm. It's like a virtual reality simulator, but it also is like shaped like a vagina.
Well, okay, so have you seen Videodrome?
No, I haven't.
So James Woods has a vagina in his stomach, and he is mind controlled by people who put videotapes into it that like give him his mission to like assassinate people and stuff. So This is all. None of this is new for Cronenberg.
No, not at all, not at all, not at all. But it is kind of weird that there's like an extended and I'm sure there is in Videodrome. There's an extended sequence in existence when where Jennifer Jason Leigh is like basically rubbing the clit of the device to like stimulate it.
Yeah, there's similar things in Videodrome, but instead of Jennifer Jason Leigh, it's the chick from Blondie, Debbie Harry.
I don't know who that is.
Wait, you've never heard Blondie, like the band?
Oh, the band? I mean, I'm sure I've heard some of their songs.
Oh, well, she's the singer. So, Dead Ringers, it's a witness. And then the last movie I watched that's not Inception was Roman Holiday.
Ooh.
Which got Hepburn an Academy Award for Best Actress and Dalton Trumbo a Oscar through an intermediary because he was blacklisted.
Yep.
And I gotta say, man, the first hour of Roman Holiday is fucking terrible. It's my girlfriend loves classic like black and white movies just because of their vibe, So she wanted to watch something kind of old. I spotted Roman Holiday on Prime. I'm like, this movie's won awards and stuff. Let's check it out. First hour of the movie, I fell asleep. I was so bored. Because the first hour of the movie, it's just Gregory Peck like waving his eyebrows and Audrey Hepburn trying not to pass out because she's been drugged. And that's it. And there's like no humor or anything happening. It's just that for an hour. And it's terrible. It's interminably boring. And I don't know how Dalton Trumbo won best like script or best story, given that is the first hour of this goddamn movie. That said, after I finally woke up, and the movie did too, it's pretty good. The second hour anyway. Like, if you could just chop the first hour down to 10 minutes and have the whole movie be, 70 minutes long, it might be okay. Because the second hour, is when they actually do stuff and they go run around Rome and have the titular Roman holiday. And, they go on these little adventures and have, these little shenanigans and stuff. And there's, a crazy brawl that breaks out on a barge where, Audrey Hepburn is, beating people up with musical instruments and stuff. And, all that's fun and entertaining. And, the end of the movie is actually really good, too, where it's there's a big press conference where, Audrey Hepburn reemerges after kind of running away as her royal self and answers questions from the press. And, she has kind of a silent goodbye with Gregory Peck. And then all the press leaves and she leaves. And they kind of silently acknowledge, the prior day was probably the best day of their life, but they'll never be able to recapture it because, they're from two different worlds, essentially. And so, everyone kind of leaves, and then Gregory Peck is just standing there waiting in this big hall where the press conference was, and he kind of realizes, she's not coming back. So he goes home. But yeah,
so it's that bittersweet Hollywood ending.
Yeah. Which is weird because, in most movies of that time period, it would end with him leaving, and then she runs out, and it's like, no, don't go, or some shit. So it's kind of gutsy that they actually do just never get back together.
That's why it won, dude.
But the first hour is awful. It's so bad. It's literally just Audrey Hepburn, mumbling things in tired voice, and Gregory Peck going, and waving his eyebrows around. Also, Gregory Peck, I don't know if he's, not used to playing a lighthearted role or something, but that guy's face has no expressive ability whatsoever. He wears the same expression the entire movie. It's one eyebrow slightly cocked with a smirk, and that's it. That's his entire performance.
Dude, those are fighting words. Gregory Peck is my favorite actor. I'm totally kidding, dude. I'm totally kidding. The only movie I saw him in was To Kill a Mockingbird.
Well, that's the only movie most people have seen him in, and I figure, just because of that, like, I figure he's mostly in dramatic movies, because back in that time period, you were usually typecast. Like, you're either a serious actor, like Gregory Peck, or you're a fun actor, like, Archibald Leach.
Yes. Cary Grant.
Cary Grant, that's right. It's weird when I can think of his actual name and not his Hollywood name.
Well, Cary Grant was up for the role in Roman Holiday, so I was like, oh, I could throw in a Cary Grant reference, and we could bring it back Archibald Leach.
Yeah, well, it's just like, so yeah, Gregory Peck, he's in like To Kill a Mockingbird, How the West Was Won, The Boys from Brazil, Cape Fear, The Gunfighter, The Guns of Navarone, Moby Dick, like all these very kind of, you know, more serious, more prestige-y movies, so being the romantic lead in an aimless and, you know, dawdling rom-com is probably not something he's used to, so he seems very out of place in it.
They got him for his eyebrows, dude.
Yeah.
His eyebrows and his his strong jawline that could crack knuckles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, easy there, Matt. Also, the whole movie has this feeling of like, hey, you know, we're in Rome with a camera. Let's just shoot a bunch of stuff and see if we can make a movie out of it. Because like, when the movie starts, there's a title card that says like, this entire film was shot on location in Rome.
Yeah.
So I feel like on some level it's more of a Rome tourism video than it is actually a movie, which might explain why it's for long stretches it is so just painfully dull.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay, quick Roman Holiday story. I've watched the first hour of Roman Holiday and then I shut it off because I had to do something else. And I have not gone back to it because I was so bored waiting for something to happen.
See? I fucking told you, man.
So I get it, and I think like I always find movies where they go like this movie was filmed on location in Rome. Like it reminds me of like those like what is it, the neo-realist Roman film, like the neo-realist Italian films where like we shot this on location in Italy, even though it's like kind of suspect how much of it was actually shot on location.
Yeah.
But like it's kind of an excuse of like, oh, just being in this place is our production value.
Yeah.
And I do sort of like those movies, but yes, I can see how it would kind of seem more touristy than not.
Yeah, it feels the whole movie feels gimmicky. Like it's one of those things that's like, hey, you know, this is the 1950s and plane travel is a giant hassle and really only for the rich anyway, so no one is ever going to Rome. You know, 90% of people who see this movie will never go to Rome. So here's like a cool, you know, it's like you're in Rome. Watch this movie and you can feel what it's like to be in one of, you know, the world's oldest and most storied cities. Whereas it's like now, you know, shooting on location in Rome, it's like right now, there's like, you can probably get a flight to Italy for $10, but but generally speaking, like, you know, traveling to Europe is an accessible thing for ordinary people to do. So the gimmick of like, you know, oh hey, this movie was shot on location in some European city is not. No one gives a shit anymore. But yeah, Roman Holiday kind of sucks, but there's some good stuff in it.
So what do you give it?
It's fine. It's like, I don't know, it's like Revenge of the Sith in a weird way, where it's like the bad stuff is so bad, but the good stuff is so good. It kind of straddles that line. Although with Revenge of the Sith, the bad stuff is so bad it's hilarious, which actually makes it good again. Whereas this, the bad stuff is so bad I wanted to die.
Oh, the true romantic in Gabe. Just like... I've been meaning to go back and rewatch it because I do like the old black and white movies, and I kind of like giving into like the kind of corniness of it all.
Yeah, there is an allure to that kind of corniness because there is something about like the way old school romances are, where like the most intense scene in the whole movie is like them hugging and sharing one kiss at the end, whereas like, you know, in a modern romantic movie, like the two characters fuck immediately.
Yeah. Well, I also love all the classic, like, I think I've talked about this before, all the classic movie kissing where it's basically just two balloons, like, smushed together for, like, half a second and then pulled apart.
It's like how have you ever seen Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs?
No, I didn't.
So in that movie, you know, there's like the main character and you know, his love interest. You know, they start off kind of friendly and then develop an attraction towards one another, and then they have like their big romantic kiss at the end. And they do exactly that. Like they both like inflate their cheeks like frogs because they don't know what they're doing and smush their faces together. It's so fucking funny.
Mike, have you seen Roman Holiday?
I have not.
Oh, I was like, I had this odd feeling. I was like, you know, I feel like Mike has seen this movie. I don't know why, but no. All my instincts are bad. We have a mutual friend who really likes it, so I'm like tempted to watch it and see if I can like get through the first hour to the tourist section.
Yeah. So, well, no, the first hour isn't even the tourist section. The first hour is Audrey Hepburn being, "I'm tired and supposed to be British."
Yes. The mid-Atlantic accent. Can't you tell I am English?
Actually, her like posh English accent is pretty good. It's not like Cary Grant's weird like English-American hybrid. It's not the weird elocution crap that you see in you know,
not
Singing in the Rain,
Star Wars Episode 4.
Or Carrie Fisher.
Rest in peace.
So yeah, what have you been watching lately, Mike?
Ooh, twist! Ooh. What a twist!
Throw it to me.
But seriously, Mike, what have you been watching lately?
I've actually recently watched the remake of Little Shop of Horrors. That's actually, I've never seen it before, and it was actually pretty good.
Wait, which remake?
Oh, the
86 with Rick Moranis.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. I like how the one that everyone knows is actually the remake.
Yeah.
And then the one from like 1965 with Jack Nicholson as the original.
Yeah.
No one remembers the Corman movie?
No one remembers the Corman movie. No one remembers any Corman movie.
Yeah, that's true, except for Boxcar Bertha, but that's not good memories. Just quickly, and then I'll let you get into it, Mike. Fun story. The person who did the music for The Little Mermaid did all of the music for Little Shop of Horrors. All right, there.
Oh, shit.
I had to put it out there. Shout out Howard Ashman. So you liked it? You liked Little Shop of Horrors, the musical?
I did. Like, I've never seen it before, and I was always wondering, like, what the hell all this Suddenly Seymour crap was. Because they do it in the Goldbergs, actually, and I've never seen the movie before, so I didn't get the joke. So I watched it, and then they were just like, Suddenly Seymour, practically the whole movie, but it only made sense the last time they sang it, because it was Suddenly Seymour. But,
wait, is there a character on the Goldbergs named Seymour?
No. Oh. No, they were just doing a Little Shop of Horrors, like, gag.
Oh, okay.
But I got the joke, and it was actually pretty funny. It only took me 3 months.
You're like Captain America. I understood that reference.
I got that one.
I was surprised how realistic the plant was, though. It was believable. Like, the lips were moving and everything. I was really surprised by how good the effects were.
So, another fun fact. You know who directed it?
That would be Frank Oz.
Yep. So he's familiar with like the puppetry and all of that. So he would have been able to shoot around it really well. If you think
it was really good. Also, Steve Martin, I've never seen him play a role like that.
No, yeah, he's really good at it.
It was creepy.
And Bill Murray's cameo appearance.
Yeah, the Bill Murray cameo.
I love that part.
Throw him off.
So great.
He's like orgasming in the dentist chair. It was a lot to take in.
Like, that's such a great
is the best stuff.
Little bit. Yeah, like the sadistic dentist and then his masochist patient who's so masochistic it creeps him out.
It creeped out a guy with a shrine to his mother in his work class. Like, that's so weird.
I think they shot the whole thing in like a week or something like that. Yeah, they really went through it fast. It was shot like
I guess Frank Oz was on Sesame Street time.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like hey guys, we do 30 minutes a day. Come on, let's get it moving.
Come on. How much coverage? Who the hell needs coverage? God damn it. We only have Steve Martin for 5 hours, okay? 5
Coverage?
hours, man.
You mean you don't just shoot everything in wide twos?
Wide twos that just travel along. They just travel along an axis there. Oh man. No, it's the behind the scenes of the movie are fascinating.
It was well done. I really liked it.
Yeah. What would you give it?
Probably a Witness. Like, it wasn't amazing, but it was definitely worth a watch.
I would agree with that. That's a pretty solid rating for it. Have you seen it, Gabe?
Yeah, ages ago, but I enjoyed it.
Here. Yeah, it's fun. It's also short too. It's like it's not like, yeah.
It's sub 2 hours.
I think it's like close to like an hour and a half only. Have you been watching anything else?
I recently got the DC streaming service, and I've been watching Harley Quinn, like the cartoon show.
And how's that?
It's surprisingly gory, but I'm loving it so far. It's really funny to see everything from Harley Quinn's perspective, because like no spoilers, but some shit goes down with her and the Joker the first episode, and it's really funny. So I can't wait to watch the next few episodes.
Is it better than Birds of Prey?
Sounds like it.
I know, it already sounds better. Let's see. One, it's animated.
Yeah.
Do they overly sexualize Harley Quinn like they do in the DC movies?
They try, but she always has like a quip to like knock that shit out of the park. It's just like, no, get that shit out of here. I'm not a sex symbol. I'm a badass kind of thing. But they do it in a really funny way.
Mm.
And it almost seems like Poison Ivy and Harley have something going there, but we'll see in the next few episodes.
Okay. How many episodes is it? Is it like released weekly or?
As far as I know, it has 2 seasons. Or they're in the second season now. I'm still in the first season. I've only watched about 4 episodes, so I'm not like crazy into it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. Anything else?
I mean, I watched The Green Hornet last night.
Wait, like the movie with Seth Rogen and Christoph Waltz?
Seth Rogen and Christoph Waltz. And the very short cameo of James Franco.
How was that?
Yeah, seriously, I'm kind of curious now.
The cameo with James Franco or the movie entirely?
Both, I guess.
Okay, so the thing with James Franco is Christoph Waltz is like the big bad.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes in to intimidate James Franco, who owns this club, who's also selling narcotics on Waltz's turf. And then James Franco proceeds to just say, "You're not scary anymore. Like, this is a young man's world. You got to dress to be the best." And then Christoph Waltz just like casually is like, "I'm not scary. Like, are you kidding me?" Like, he's offended. It's really funny. And then he pulls out this 2-barrel pistol and then just offs 4 guys in like a second. And James Franco's just like panicking the whole time. He's like, "You're scary. Don't kill me." And then Christoph Waltz just casually walks out and then blows up the building. So he can't like make any profit or anything. But it was a fun interaction. But the movie as a whole, it has fun parts. It's not as funny as I thought it was going to be because of Seth Rogen. But it has some really cool action sequences. And I'd say it's worth a watch. Like, don't go in expecting, like, Citizen Kane, but...
Right. Was that one... That was directed by Seth Rogen and his directing partner, which I think is Evan Goldberg. Is that right? Did Seth Rogen direct it?
Michael Gondry directed.
Oh, that's right. Michel Gondry did.
Wait, what?
Oh.
Michel
yes, that's
oh
right.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, that's right.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, Michel
mean-
Gondry directed it.
French avant-garde independent filmmaker Michel Gondry.
Yeah, from the director of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Be Kind, Rewind, and a bunch of music videos. Michel Gondry.
Oh my god. Oh
Yeah.
my god. What the hell? That's so weird. By the way,
James
Be
Olmos
Kind,
is in it?
Rewind is a
Yeah, he
freaking
is.
masterpiece.
So is David Harbour, surprisingly.
I know. I'm looking at the cast right. Oh yeah, I forgot. Cameron Diaz was in that back when like Cameron Diaz was like, I can hang with this younger hip crowd that's like 10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit. Oh man, I'm very tempted in like a kind of like in a morbid curiosity way now to watch it because I had no interest in watching it when it came out.
I mean, it's fun. It's like a 5.
It's
It's like a 5, but it's fun to watch.
It's a guilty pleasure type of movie.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Okay.
It's one of those. I hesitantly said Green Hornet because you asked for a third movie.
No, hey, I mean, trust me. I've been watching shit these last 2 weeks, like on my own.
How many
So-
movies do you watch, like, per week?
Me for a 2-week span.
Sure.
That's when we record
Yeah.
behind the curtain. Usually, I don't know, like one every other day.
Wow, that's
Sometimes.
pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was-
Yeah, it's kind of because I maybe a little more because I have to make sure I watch this stuff for the show. Like Inception,
Yeah.
I squeezed in, but like this, for example, did I talk about Six Underground last time? I don't remember.
No, I don't think so. No,
The Michael-
maybe you did.
So
you did, yeah.
I did talk about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to work my way through the Netflix exclusive movies. So like Six Underground, Triple Frontier. I finally watched.
Was that good?
Triple Frontier?
Yeah.
It's fine. Like,
Damn.
yeah,
a lot of
like
Netflix movies.
I think, there's like something missing out of all of the Netflix movies. It's like I had it like one night I was thinking about it. I was like, why is it that like 600? Because even Six Underground, I like it better than most Michael Bay movies, and it's a whole lot of fun, but it's a whole lot of stupid. And like I said last time, like Michael Bay, I think he just assumes that when people have sex, it's like women in lingerie dry humping men. Because like all of the sex scenes in Michael Bay movies are like that. And then,
Poor
like, it
Michael
always,
Bay,
like-
he's really missing out.
I know he really is. He really is. Like, I can imagine him doing that. It's like, what? Why would you take it off? Like, no, I would rather feel the boobies through the lingerie. I prefer it that way. All right.
Wait, Michael, you never took a health class in school? What are you talking about?
school? What's
School? What's that?
Educated. What? But Triple Frontier is weird because like, so the problem with the movie is something happens in it that is, well, the problem with Triple Frontier is that people are really stupid in the movie.
Okay.
And that's why I don't like it. Now, with that said, the cast is fantastic. Like, I know Gabe and I talked about Ben Affleck as like by the way, I've just decided to hijack this, and I'm just telling you guys what I watched now. So.
Okay.
It's fine.
But like tired alcoholic Ben Affleck is like my favorite Ben Affleck. Tired, run down alcoholic Ben Affleck, because like he gives his best performances that way. Like he's great in The Town, and that's what he is in The Town. He's really good in Triple Frontier, and that's who he is in Triple Frontier.
He's really good in all his most recent interviews because that's who he is in real
because
life.
that's what he is. That's why I'm kind of interested in watching The Way Back, because I'm like, Ben Affleck does a good job when he's like the most like reserved, depressed, sad actor on the screen. He's usually the best.
Well, the truest performances come from within. So.
It's the honesty of it all.
It's like how Tom Cruise's best roles are the ones where he plays a complete lunatic.
He's just doing crazy shit that should get people killed. Oh God. But like Charlie Hunnam's in Triple Frontier as well, and I like Charlie Hunnam the best when he's the character who's basically just like the moral compass of the movie, and that's what he is in Triple Frontier. What's his name? Oscar Isaac is in it, and he does. He's all right in it. Pedro Pascal, Garrett Hedlund, like they all do a really good job. But I think the story that they were trying to tell, the way that they went about it, by the midpoint, it's more of like it's almost like a slog and a marathon to get to the end instead of like an engaging second half of the movie. So that's my problem, because the beginning stuff is like pretty awesome, but then when a movie devolves into like normally smart people being stupid, unless it's done by Martin Scorsese, it usually doesn't work very well. I rewatched Captain Blood, which is one of my favorite movies, but it's not to everyone's taste. It's my favorite movie because I realized that I love movies that
have Errol Flynn in them.
Yes. Yeah. Do you see this line? 3 men. Or 3... This is 3 people in the tub. I forgot what movie that was in.
It's from Taxi Driver.
Yes, that's right.
Like that guy showing Travis Bickle. It's like,
yes.
This is a piece of Errol Flynn's bathtub.
Yep. Thank God. Oh, I'm glad you've seen Taxi Driver like a half dozen times, Gabe.
I know.
But Captain Blood is good. Like I think, Gabe, we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about when I was talking about Casablanca, how like Michael Curtiz as a director is just so bland and milquetoast that if you gave anyone else the material for Captain Blood, it probably would have been better, because there's clearly a part where one character is dead, a wave hits him, and he opens his eyes, and they left it in the movie for some reason.
Ooh, okay, that reminded me. Roman Holiday is one of the only classical Hollywood movies I've ever seen that has actual editing mistakes in it.
Really?
Now, yeah, I don't know if this was like some shitty transfer that they put on Amazon or if it's like legit, but there were 2 or 3 like just really shitty cuts in the movie that stood out as being, you know, like someone fumbled the film while they were handling it or something.
So I don't know about the transfer for Roman Holiday, but Captain Blood does have several parts that have dropped frames. So I'm wondering if it's the same with Roman Holiday.
Maybe. Yeah, because editing from that time period is famous for how like crisp and flawless it is. So it's weird to see a movie from that era that actually has like a dropped frame or like a really awful cut.
Yeah. Well, it's especially surprising with like Roman Holiday because it's held in such high esteem. But in oh my God, what is it? It's a Wonderful Life. There are many sequences that have horrible editing. So if you want to see another classic that has really bad editing, moment to moment editing, It's a Wonderful Life. But with that said, yeah, what was the thing in Roman Holiday specifically? Do you remember?
No, it's just there's like a shot. There's a couple there's like 2 or 3 moments where there is something wrong, but I remember one. There is a bit of Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn talking, and it's either a dropped frame or it's a cut between 2 shots, but they cut too early. So like a bit of sound and movement gets clipped off.
I wonder if it's a drop frame.
Maybe.
I wonder. Like I'm guessing with these older movies that it's because like that particular frame of the film was so damaged that they had to stitch it together. Because again, they didn't do preservation until like the last like 40 years they started doing it. So
yeah,
a lot more of those errors eke through. But by the way, if you guys haven't seen Captain Blood, I feel like it's worth a watch. You might not enjoy it as much as I do because I like that kind of like corny swashbuckling action and like really bad fake laughter and stuff. But like it's that's and funny because we're in his backyard. But like I like it's still a pretty solid film and story. And then the last thing I rewatched episode 4 of Star Wars because of Star Wars Day. It's worth it to watch, the best actual movie out of the Star Wars movies. And I like swashbuckling movies, so naturally, you know, I love Star Wars Episode 4. But like one thing I do when I watch the Star Wars Episode 4, and I don't do with the other movies, is that like Episode 4, I know, Gabe, we talked about this, it feels like a Flash Gordon serial, and so that's how I watch it. I watch it as an homage to that, like before it got weighed down in years and years of goofy lore issues. And like I enjoy it because of that. I enjoy like your old religion, the Force, and like Darth Vader's just some like overpowered like mini boss, and Grand Moff Tarkin's the actual like mastermind behind it. Like I like all that stuff. So
yeah,
it kind of holds a special place.
It is very much like an old. It is a movie made in the 70s that is a throwback to shit from like the 40s and 50s. Like it is, you know, a swashbuckling adventure that does kind of stand on its own. Like there's no need for a sequel or anything. Like that movie almost exists in a vacuum.
Yeah, and that's why I like it. Which makes it really hard when you try to connect like episode 1, 2, and 3 to it, because then it's like, wait, what? Like, how did he go from like Ewan McGregor, and then in like 20 years now he looks like freaking like Alec Guinness on his deathbed? Like, what happened in those 20 years, Obi-Wan?
A lot of alcoholism.
Just a lot of him staring out into the distance, wondering where it all went wrong.
Well, I was gonna say that desert air can't be good for your skin either, so
yeah, it's
probably just dried out.
It's like I should have listened to David Lean and fucking Peter O'Toole better. I didn't have brown face to save me this time.
I know. Alec Guinness playing people of other races is a genre unto itself.
What was the movie? So because I've seen Lawrence of Arabia, and Mike, if you haven't seen Lawrence of Arabia, you should. One, because it's a good movie, but two, because Alec Guinness plays a Middle Eastern.
He plays it. What he plays the Arab Prince Faisal, who later became King Faisal of Arabia.
And in that movie, you can see how he ascends to the throne, or is he already at the? Is he already?
Well, he's basically at the throne of the the group of Arab tribes that are aligned with him, but it kind of leads into him becoming the king of a consolidated Saudi Arabian state.
It's Mike, if you haven't seen it, it's really good.
I've seen parts.
If you can, if and when theaters open back up, definitely when they start showing it in theaters again, that's the way to do it, because you can watch it at home and it's not. I personally, kind of like the movie we're about to talk about. I personally think that it kind of does it a disservice if you're not in a theater with a big screen seeing all of these epic and monumental shots.
Okay, that's fair.
For me personally. But
I've only seen it at home, so... And I still think it's one of the greatest movies ever.
Yeah.
So...
It's got an intermission, Mike. You can stop midway through.
Okay. 4 hours, damn.
No, it is really cool seeing it in theaters and having the intermission play, and you're like, you go up to stretch your legs and you're like, oh my god, let me think about the first half of the movie for 15 minutes, and you buy your you can get a refill of soda and buy your popcorn and stuff. So,
but I have to.
Yeah. No, it's really good. It's really good. It's actively engaging. And Alec Guinness in deserts, it's just it's like it just works. There's something about it that just works. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Inception. I've been dreaming of this moment for a long time.
Ha ha ha.
I'm done with the because there aren't a lot. After you use the word dream like 4 times, it's like, all right, you've used it 3 times too many. And I don't have any, I don't know. I'm not like Leonardo DiCaprio's character Dom. I can't like recalibrate my circadian cycle for whatever. Anyway, Inception. Where should we begin?
I don't know, Matt. You're the host. Do host things.
Okay, so here's my take on Inception, and you guys, hopefully we can use this as a jumping off point. I feel like it's the most Christopher Nolan-y movie, but it's not Christopher Nolan's best movie. So here's what I mean.
I think I understand what you mean.
Okay. Mike, do you kind of understand what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of
explain it for the people at home, though.
So the one thing missing from The Prestige was mazes. It's a weird way to put it, but like So the movie begins, with like the title screens coming up and like syncope comes up. Christopher Nolan's obsessed with a couple of different things. He loves time, clearly, because most or all of his movies have some component of time factoring in a way that you're consciously aware of it. Whereas, like, obviously time comes into all movies because it's like, oh no, we're constrained by a time frame. Christopher Nolan actually wants you to actively think about how time is working in his movies. And pretty much, and if not in all of them, all of the ones that are not Batman related, time is an important factor. To a lesser extent, in the Batman ones, they are too. Second, Christopher Nolan loves puzzles and mazes. And this movie is all about, this is like the sort of surface layer is that like creating the dreamscape, they have to create puzzles and mazes in order to constrain the subjects and help them out. But even so, extracting or planting the information is a puzzle or maze in its own that they're trying to work on to solve. So he's got the time, he's got the puzzles and the mazes. He loves movies. And I think this is the one where it's like the most over. I think people have done a lot of reports on this about how it's like the heist crew is kind of like a movie crew. You have Cobb, that's the director, who looks eerily and dresses eerily similar to Christopher Nolan the entire movie. Mm-hmm. You have all of his supporting people. The architect is kind of like either the script supervisor or one of the construction artists or part of the production design team. You have all of the individual people in their individual crew. Tom Hardy is Tom Hardy, but he also is a chameleon, which is funny because, Tom Hardy throughout his career is great.
And he's also like the lead actor, He's the one who has to put on the performance.
Yes, yeah. I think his role as like the thief in the thief in this, he kind of has to do all of the participating roles to support all of the other actors. And
it's Locke all over again, basically.
Yeah, it's so like there's the crew there, but there's also a certain level of artificiality baked into everything in Inception. For like for example, when they go to the hotel, or he's talking about the hotel suite, and he's like, oh, where is this? And he's like, oh, it's a hotel suite we always went to when we're
our anniversary.
For our anniversary, yeah. But like the hotel suite, when you look around it, it just looks artificial. They don't specify what city it's in. And so the whole dynamic, not just of the hotel suite, but like of most of the movie, feels super artificial, even though they shot it in a lot of practical locations. They purposefully keep it kind of, well, I don't know if they purposefully do it, but the movie is kept kind of anonymous as to the environment around it. So we have and also there's a bunch of like really random action scenes that are kind of baked into the narrative well, but also really not, and they're also like overly long. So like it kind of has like a rundown of all of the stuff that Christopher Nolan loves in movies.
Yeah.
He has like his ode to film noir with the femme fatale. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and then it has a really complex idea of like, oh, dreams, and we have to think about it, and the whole movie you're thinking about every aspect of the movie, which I think works against it in certain regards. But
I don't think it works against it. I think that's the idea.
But I do think it works against it in parts. Like
okay, yeah, in certain parts, because if you're encouraged to think too much about the movie, you'll be thinking about like when the hotel room is, being flipped around upside down. What are all the sleeping people doing? Are they just being banged against the walls and stuff?
I didn't even think about that. Or what's the purpose of the totem if, like, from the outset, Cobb's totem is compromised? Like, what's the why? What purpose does it serve then for the movie? Because it was originally Maul's that he took. So if he took it, he doesn't actually know the actual weight. So, which leads down the rabbit hole of the people who are like, the whole thing is a dream.
It's not the weight, it's the, if you spin the top in the dream, it never stops spinning. In real life, it'll fall over.
Yeah, but at what point will it fall over and that stuff there? That's how I feel like it kind of undoes it. And then like the moment where he spins it and it falls, or like Saito comes in as it falls down, it's like, that's a really good dramatic moment, but logically for the story, if you're like thinking about it kind of, probably the wrong term, in the abstract, but if you're thinking about it like that, it's like, well, now why wouldn't he just do that immediately? Why wouldn't he use his totem as soon as he could to see and make sure that it fell down?
Yeah.
And why is Saito going on the mission at all? Like, that's the biggest, like, movie-ish thing in the movie. Like, if it were supposed to reflect real life, Saito would not go on the mission at all.
He has
would
to
have
protect his investment or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, the only way I can guarantee that you do the job properly as this owner of a multi-billion-dollar corporation is to go with you. I'm sorry, I didn't realize Elon Musk was the leader. I guess it makes sense because I think Elon Musk would do that. So.
He would, yeah. I mean,
joke's on me.
A couple interesting things that you brought up is, I think one thing I really like about this movie that it does really well is it takes the psychology of its characters and makes everything that they're thinking and feeling super duper duper literal.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Down to even their totems.
Yeah, down to even their totems. And it's interesting because, like, Cobb's whole struggle internally is that, one, he feels guilty about essentially causing his wife to kill herself. And also his own experiments with dreaming and her own sort of uncertainties and anxieties are starting to creep into his mind as well, where he's drugging himself every night and reliving old memories and trying to fulfill all his wishes in a dream state.
Right.
While essentially trying to escape the real world, which is too horrible for him. But at the same time, like, the desire to retreat into a world which is not real, which eventually leads one to question whether the real world is real, which happened to Maul and is starting to happen to him, is kind of expressed through how the story is constructed, right? Because you talk about weird action sequences that aren't super well baked into the plot. They just sort of show up and they go on for a little too long. That stuff I think kind of fits with the sort of meandering and obsessive nature of dreams. He's always being chased by anonymous people in anonymous places for the most part. Like that hotel room, we don't know where it is. When he finds Tom Hardy and then gets chased by the oil men or whatever.
Yeah, by the people from Cobalt Global, yeah.
Cobalt Energy or whatever. Like that's, I think they named the city once, but it's like this weirdly generic version of a Middle Eastern city with like hallways that defy architectural logic and stuff, like the narrowing alley that he has to get through and things like that. So I think even the real world seems slightly off, and Maul kind of mentions that at the end, like, how do you know the real world is real? Doesn't it feel like a dream? Because in a sense, for everyone else it's real, but to Cobb, he's not so sure.
Right.
And as a result, the viewer is made to be unsure as well, even though his little spinning top comes to, prove that he's in the real world every time.
Right.
Damn.
Mike?
I don't even know how to, like, follow that up, but pretty much hit everything on the head there. But yeah, I knew how the movie was supposed to go, and I've watched it, I don't know, maybe 6 times in total. So I've seen it a few times, so I knew exactly how the film was kind of constructed. How it starts off with Cobb supposedly trying to get Saito back as an old man kind of thing. So yeah. I knew ahead of time that this was all going to be a flashback of everything that they're saying. But the problem I have was, near the end when he gets to go back home and he sees his children and everything. I feel like some time has passed and his children shouldn't look exactly the same as when he left.
So that's that's actually a good question. That's something that I'd be happy to open the floor up to, but go ahead, Mike, go ahead and finish your thought.
And my first clue for that time has passed is that when he's talking to the grandmother and talking to his kids, the daughter sounds much older than the little brother and much older than what she was portrayed to be when he left. If that makes sense.
Like when he has that phone call at the beginning?
Yes. Like, the daughter seemed to be old enough to understand that he's probably not going to come back.
Philippa?
Instead of that, like, yes. Instead of that childlike, oh, he's coming back. Like, all I have to do is wait.
Right.
She just straight up gave up. And that's not a very young child thing to do, if that makes sense.
So I think one of the things that it gets into, though, is like another issue. What is the time scale on the movie? Like, how long has he been away from the States? Because they don't explicitly state it at all in the movie, do they?
No.
The way he looks in flashbacks and the way Maul looks in flashbacks. Obviously, Maul's not going to age, but like him personally, he still looks the same to the point where he has the same haircut. And of course, part of it is like the artificiality of movies. It's not like they're going to go through and do, a whole different setup, and most people consistently get the same kind of haircut. But we don't, but like, again, like it leads to a question of like, okay, well, let's overthink what's going on in the movie. Like it implies that a long time has passed, but they don't explicitly state it, which is good, because then if they explicitly state it, it gets kind of wonky.
Yeah.
But like I always was under the impression that everything happened within maybe a year's time of Maul dying, something like that.
Okay.
Well, my sort of opinion on it is, well, I guess I should say the official sort of view from Nolan is that it doesn't matter if he's in a dream or not because he's happy.
Right. You could finally see his kids' faces.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's the whole Citizen Kane thing.
But Rosebud is the sled, guys.
We're going to show you Rosebud, but really we literally just told you that no man could be designated by one word. We're going to show you Rosebud to fool everyone. Like, it's the same thing, it feels like.
But I think the way I view it is that the whole movie is based on this idea that the whole movie is constructed in a way that what literally is happening isn't as important as the feeling of what's happening, which is kind of what Cobb says about the nature of dreams and what Nolan is saying about the nature of movies, because Inception very explicitly compares dreams to movies all the time. And a lot of what Cobb says about dreams can be applied to movies. So I think that the way the viewer experiences the uncertainty over what is real is not necessarily meant to be like us questioning whether or not what's happening is real, but more to help us empathize with Cobb and his predicament. Because he's uncertain. Everyone else is certain but him, because he's lost himself. He, like I said, because he's basically a drug addict. Intoxicating himself every night. And he lives two lives, one in the quote-unquote real world with everyone else, and one inside of his own fantasy. And it's getting to the point for him where either he can't tell the difference, or he doesn't want to tell the difference, or both. So I think a lot of the uncertainty over what is real is just meant to help us empathize with him.
Okay.
But that's just my view.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just to bring it back to what Gabe said about believing what was real, even Maul, or his projection of Maul, says, stop thinking about what you know is real and start trying to think about what you feel is real. And that's how she was trying to explain to him what real means to him, I guess. Because he's talking to his own subconscious, right?
Yeah, he's talking to himself.
Yeah, so it's kind of like having an argument with himself while he's talking to Maul. It just works. It makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good interpretation of the text.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, like I said, that's one thing I really admire about the movie is that it does make the character's internal conflict so literal and so external, where in a more realistic drama, like a guy who feels guilty about his wife's suicide is going to be, it's going to be a lot of shots of him like sitting in a room alone looking very sad or something and being like, I feel guilty, and then something happens and he's like, I don't feel guilty anymore. But with this, like his guilt takes the form of an actual person that he has to have a verbal and physical confrontation with, which is, we see it a lot, but I don't think there's very many movies that are that committed to that kind of a representation. Like you see that in, say, Empire Strikes Back, where Luke fights Darth Vader in the cave, it cuts his head off, and then it's his own face underneath the mask, basically. It's, Luke confronting his own inner demons and his own capacity for evil and malevolence. And with this, Cobb confronts his guilt in the form of a physical person, but that conflict is drawn out over the whole movie, which I think makes it really cool.
It's like direct parallels between your external and your internal conflict. It's just like a straight line. It's just boom, conflict, which I think is kind of cool. It's like the reason why they always give a guy a partner, like a cop, a partner, so like he doesn't have to do a bunch of internal monologuing. It's like the same kind of deal, but with like a villain.
Except in Blade Runner: The Final Cut, where Deckard doesn't have a partner and doesn't have a voiceover. So it literally is just him standing around looking sad.
It's weird. Quick aside, like obviously we both love Blade Runner, and like Harrison Ford, fantastic talent. But it is kind of funny that Harrison Ford in Blade Runner is doing all of the exact opposite of everything that people like about him.
Oh yeah,
he's doing in Blade Runner.
I think it's his best performance in his whole career, and it is the most un-Harrison Fordy performance of his career.
Yeah. Well, that's usually how it works. It's like, oh yeah, people like the role that's like dramatically different. Unless you're freaking Mark Wahlberg, in which case you just play angry Boston cop the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's people who love, who would say Boogie Nights is his best role.
I mean, I'm partial to the Italian Job, but I'm just kidding. The other interesting thing about Inception is like okay, so I don't personally love the script. I think there's a lot of moments in it that are kind of corny. Like when he's in his dream and Cobb is verbally explaining like his son is looking for something. He's like, James is digging for something. He's found something. Maybe it's a worm. And like it's partially like Leonardo DiCaprio's kind of goofy delivery to me. But like I think the way that the script is layered is pretty good for the most part. But there's a couple of like really strange things to me in the script. Like I don't like when I think they're in Mombasa or Mumbai, one of the two, and he's being chased.
Probably Mombasa, because Mumbai is India.
Okay. So when he's I don't know,
it's on a different continent.
With Eames and, oh, I know a man, Yusuf. That's great. But like that whole chase scene, I don't like the, well, I'll get into that in a second. What I do like is that, like you were saying, how the characters' externality, or like the characters' conflicts are visually represented, but I also like how the characters all have different conflicts they're dealing with. It's almost like you're able to, like, a lot of movies do this well, but this is the one that, like, I kind of latched onto, where the different character conflicts are personified by the different characters. So you don't have, like, one character who has daddy issues and, like, his wife is dead and he's feeling guilty and he's a bad, father and his company's going under. It's like, okay, we have the two most obvious ones are, you have Cobb dealing with his guilt, and you have Cillian Murphy
Fisher.
trying to accept himself, as Fisher. And like I like the fact that it's like, oh, as a writer, if you're looking to explore multiple ideas, the best thing to do is to have separate characters who explore those ideas in sharp focus, as opposed to one character who has to explore all of those ideas like in one narrative. So that's why that's one of the things I really liked about Inception. I know it's really strange and it's really like way off topic from what Inception's normally talked about, but
I know, but
like that's something.
That is interesting. And I think to add on to that, it's a movie about sort of Russian nesting dolls of things within things. And there is kind of a
nice.
Well, but there is kind of a movie within the movie. Like it's a movie about Cobb resolving his own internal conflicts, which are externalized onto the world outside. And the way he does it is by creating a movie where Fisher's internal conflicts are externalized and then delivering him a satisfying conclusion. You know what I mean?
Brilliant. Oh my God. Yes. This is why I like to talk to you about movies. Yeah.
So there is kind of what Christopher Nolan is doing with Inception and the audience and with Cobb is also what Cobb and his team are doing with Fisher, which I also thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, that is. I do like that. And it like circles back to the idea of like Christopher Nolan loves movies and he loves puzzle. Like, it's everything in one, like, gigantic moment there. But so going way back, like, all of that stuff is great and all of that stuff is like super Christopher Nolan-y, and I'm glad that he does it like that and he has all of that stuff in there. But like, for the reasons I kind of said, specifically the action scenes, for whatever reason, stand out. It's not his tightest, and it just doesn't feel as focused as some of his other movies that are about similar topics. Like, that's why I think that The Prestige is the best Christopher Nolan movie, but this has the most Christopher Nolan in it. And like, it's very clear that this movie was one of those movies where it was just like, throw as much money at me as you can. I will use every single dollar to do things. And like, some of it is like, okay, I can, like, clearly it's pushing the medium forward with like when they're fighting in the rotating hotel room and the rotating thing like that. And then some of it I'm just like, you just had so much money that you wanted to spend it on like frivolous things. And now, Gabe, you're welcome to refute this if you want to. But I feel like having it rain in Yusuf's dream is, like, to me, the ultimate mark of, I have a ton of money, I'm going to put it all on screen. This scene doesn't need to have nearly as much rain as it does have. And we're going to be consistent with it, because that is so much money wasted on rain-making devices. Yeah. And they shot it in daytime, which means they had to use even more money to make even more rain. It just seems so, like...
Well, you notice, too, the sun is shining while it's raining.
It occasionally it is, yeah, because they couldn't black out all of downtown Los Angeles, man. But that's one of those things where I'm like, I love it, but that's like millions of dollars added to the budget for something that, like, doesn't really have any effect except to kind of make the filming more difficult. Now, you could say, oh, well, he'll be looking for a cab, and so we'll be able to get him in a cab that way. But anyway, that's the other thing. But I actually like that. I like that it's a movie where, like, you can tell that he had an unlimited budget to make whatever he wanted to, and he put everything he could into it. He put every little detail. He spent money, like a ton of money, on things that would only appear for like 10 seconds in the movie. But like, it has an effect on it the rest of the time through.
I'm just imagining Christopher Nolan, like, setting fire to pallets of cash.
Like the Joker in the Dark Knight.
It's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
It's about making sure the message is cohesive. Chris, you just spent $20 million on a freight train that only appears in 10 seconds of the movie. But it's going to have an effect on the rest of the public that they'll never forget. And dude, hey man, like, that's one of the most iconic scenes in the movie. Freight train coming all the way through downtown Los Angeles. Like, shit.
Yeah. I did like how they explained the rain, though.
Yeah.
About how Yusuf was the architect of that area, and he just drank way too much before going under. And he just really had to take a piss the whole time.
Dude, that's 19 hours of holding his bladder.
I know. I'm surprised he didn't piss himself, like, during their flight.
Like, halfway through, the sun comes up and just cuts to Tom Hardy. He's like, oh, fuck.
You know, it's
Damn
funny.
It, Yusuf.
I think this was the movie that kind of introduced Tom Hardy to a broad audience. And it's weird because, like, this is the only movie I've ever seen him in where he's, like, this genuinely kind of charming, roguish action hero kind of guy.
This was his audition for James Bond, like, through and through.
It really was.
Yeah.
And yet, yeah, because everything else he's in that we know and love him for, he's always playing, like, weirdos or lunatics.
Or, like, I really do like the way Christopher Nolan casts Tom Hardy in his movies, though, because, like, I really, like, he's my favorite part of Dunkirk.
Oh, yeah.
You know? He's just such like I'm just a really reliable airman. Yeah, it's fine.
It's the only Christopher Nolan role that he has where he doesn't have a mask either.
This in Inception, yeah, except, you know, when he has to disguise himself as, you know, hot chick number 1 or whatever, or as Tom Berenger.
Yep.
Which, by the way, like, good on Christopher Nolan for getting Tom Berenger and bringing him out of retirement or whatever for this movie. It was fun seeing him, even in his like obesely overweight, like performance in there. I was just happy to see Tom Berenger back. I was like, yeah, man, Major League. No, not Platoon. That's crazy. Platoon? Why would I go to Platoon on that? I love the whole cast of this movie, with one exception. But I love the whole cast. I love like almost all of the cast of this movie.
What's your exception?
I don't like Marion Cotillard, and it's not her fault really, but I really just don't like her in this movie.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see that.
Well, like, it's funny because like, okay, this is just gonna come. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but like, she literally plays a cardboard cutout of a human being in this movie, and they like explicitly state it. Like,
it's like, frankly, my dear, you just aren't good enough.
Yeah, it's like that speech he gives is great. It's like, oh yeah, that's true. Like when you genuinely love someone, you love all of their perfections and imperfections. Well, maybe not love all of them, but like you like for their perfections and their imperfections. Like, you're the best I could do, but really, you're just not good enough. And it's like, wow.
Damn.
I know. It's funny because like that's something that is worth reminding the audience of. But the way he says it and the way it's timed within the context of the rest of that scene feels so weird.
It just cuts out to that like one kid who just owned that other guy. Like, oh,
yeah, cool. Because it's like you have this very tense, dramatic moment, and then just dropped right in the middle is a bit of Aaron Sorkin like ownage.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Aaron Sorkin pops in with his backwards NYC cap. He's just like, you got owned in your dreams, baby.
And it's just like, what? How in this like extreme of a situation do you have A, the time, B, the clarity of thought to like put together a diss like that?
I know.
While you're trying to save, Cillian Murphy from being lost in limbo for forever or whatever.
Just had to get it out right then and there.
I know.
I mean,
it's like, I'm done with this shit.
That's what I mean, though. It's like scenes like that. It's like, okay, we know that you needed this like concluding scene where like the subconscious guilty part of you that is Maul is dies.
Like vanquished, yeah.
Yeah, like I understand that, but again, like there's got to be could there have been another way they went around it? Is it Leonardo DiCaprio's fault? Like is it a direct like it cuts to Ralph Fiennes in Hail Caesar and he just walks up to Leo and is like, I'm sorry, bad direction by me. I shouldn't have gone there and that. The mirthless chuckle. But like
the mirthless chuckle sounds like some kind of awful British Masterpiece Theater type of show.
Better than Merrily We Dance.
And now on Masterpiece Theater, the mirthless chuckle.
Someone posted on Twitter, they're like, oh my god, this was actually a show, and it was a trailer for that show that only lasted 8 episodes called The Slap. Which I think was about like a guy. Like that's what like the mirthless chuckle is to me. It's like some sort of like 8 episode like, no, this is the worst idea for a prestige drama I've ever heard.
Okay, so here's how crazy the slap rabbit hole goes. Okay, so I'm pretty sure. Let me look this up to verify because I think the history behind this is pretty wild. So there's an American version of the slap, which is based on an Australian TV show also called The Slap about the same thing, which in turn is based on an Australian novel called The Slap, which is about the same thing. So this fucking awful garbage idea has been adapted twice. And there's a parody video where like some dude is just slapping everyone at a party. Like he slaps the kid and then all the other kids and then all the parents and then he slaps the cops and stuff. That parody video is more famous than both miniseries and the novel that the miniseries are based on. So that's a little history of the slap for y'all. Also, the novel version of the slap is 500 pages.
Wait, I'm looking at the plots and all because I'm like,
and it won the Commonwealth's Writers' Prize.
So like
Jesus
to
Christ.
be clear, I can see how a novel based off of like the repercussions of like someone slapping someone else's misbehaving child could be a very like powerful, you know, Oprah Winfrey book club moment thing. But like when the slap came out, I didn't realize it was a mini. I thought it was like a recurring American show, and I was like, how are they going to scale the show? Like, what's going to happen? Like, he slaps a kid the first time, and then he goes to prison, and like a bigger guy slaps him, and then like the warden slaps out. Like, how do you scale the show? So the fact that it's a miniseries makes me feel like, okay, I understand it now.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've also just kind of explained why I hate almost all television. Because all TV or all serialized drama suffers from the Dragon Ball Z effect, where you have to scale everything. And then by the end, everything's just ridiculous. So it's like, if there was a slap TV show that lasted 5 seasons, by the 5th season, you know, our main character would have godlike powers. Yeah. He would be slapping the moon or something.
Like the sun would be personified as like an actual person compared to like this little like Peter Sarsgaard is just like, I will destroy you. Goes like Super Saiyan Z Kai or whatever. God mode. Like finally like the architect from the Matrix shows up and it's like, why did you slap him? And he slaps him and that's how the whole series ends.
Oh my gosh. He's gonna have like a Vegeta type rival and they're both gonna power up to like insane universe destroying levels and then have
slapping.
They have to team up to fight some external villain, and then after they beat the bad guy, they have to fight each other because it's obligatory.
The external villain has 4 arms.
Some Akuma level shit.
Oh, fuck. Oh, man. Oh, God. Anyway. So,
also,
yeah.
To your point about the action sequences in Inception and you not liking them very much, I kind of understand that. Because I feel like action
there's exceptions, but yeah.
Action's not Nolan's strong suit. And his action direction was like straight up bad in like Batman Begins. And then progressively got better as he's gone along to where the action sequences in Dunkirk are really, really good. But I think when it comes to action, you know, there was that time in the mid-2000s where The Bourne Identity had just come out and completely revolutionized how action scenes were done. So then everyone was copying it, but they copied it poorly to the point where the fight scenes in like Casino Royale and Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are completely inscrutable and you have no idea what's going on and they just look awful.
Well, wait, hold on. Casino Royale's action scenes are good. Quantum of Solace has no excuse. Yeah, Casino Royale's action scenes are pretty good.
Okay,
Quantum of Solace is horrible.
Quantum of Solace is way, way worse than Casino Royale, but Casino Royale, as good as that movie is, like when he's fighting that dude in the stairwell, I'm not 100% sure what was happening.
All right, fair enough.
Which is weird, because it's like, it's another issue of a movie coming along, making a big impression, and then everyone taking away the wrong things.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, The Bourne Identity came along, made a big impression, and everyone's like, oh, we got to do action scenes like The Bourne Identity, and they didn't. They somehow did like a weird parody, because like in The Bourne Identity, you can tell what's happening at all times.
Right.
It's a little more. I mean, the camera work and the editing is a lot more frantic and a lot more kinetic, which makes it a little bit harder than like The Matrix or something. But you know, you're never confused or you never lose your sense of place or geography. And I think it's so weird that even the Bourne supremacy and later Bourne movies like took the wrong things away from The Bourne Identity.
Yeah, I know. Well, like part of it is like the change in director, because like the action scenes in The Bourne Supremacy and The Bourne Ultimatum are really bad, but then again, so are all of the way everything is shot in that movie. Like it's all basically shot with like someone who had too many cups of coffee.
Yeah.
And like decided that shoulder rigs were not a good idea.
I rewatched a little bit of The Bourne Ultimatum maybe a year ago, and I thought I was having a seizure.
Damn.
It's like you realize how truly thin the plots are because you have such a hard time figuring out what you're looking at that you don't pay attention to what's going on in the plot.
But I mean, I do think the action scenes in Inception, while they're not amazing are definitely an improvement over Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and those two movies.
So, Mike, did you want to jump in? Because otherwise, I want to I've thought about these action scenes a lot in my life, so I'm happy to talk about it. But Mike, go ahead.
I've seen the Bourne series like once when I was like a very young child, so I don't remember like too much.
It's okay,
all
nobody
I know
does.
Is that they were cool, and my dad loved them. That's all I got.
Like, I can understand why the style was so popular, but it also definitely set back how movies were shot action-wise. It was like, we're going to spend more money on action scenes that are harder to see.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because
okay.
people talk about like John Wick bringing great action scenes back, and I think,
Hell yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think in some extent it's not as frenetic, but I think you look at like the fight scenes in John Wick 1, those are, especially in the nightclub, like those are a little closer to the spirit of the Bourne Identity even than the Bourne Supremacy was.
Well, the other thing about John Wick is like they brought back like further staging, and like they took all of the good lessons from the Bourne series, but also like especially with the recent ones, they've just decided to go crazy on like how do we like what can he use as a weapon. So I think that's like how they kind of keep those movies fresh. As far as like the Inception action scenes, again, I think my big problem is that they just tend to go on a little too long.
Also, I wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Jason Bourne is the OG of using writing implements as stabby weapons. So John Wick also has him to thank for that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, give me this ballpoint pen. The person who did the sound mix for that movie, man, like giving like a rapier swish sound to like a pen going into someone's hand was like brilliant. It's like, yes. Is the Bourne Identity, is that the one with Carl Urban, or is that the Bourne Supremacy?
Bourne Supremacy is Carl Urban.
Okay,
Bourne Identity is the one with frickin' Clive Owen in there for like 10 seconds.
Is he was the big bad that Matt Damon had to beat?
He's the guy who gets shot in the field, and he's like, look at what they make you give.
Okay. Yeah, dude, I barely remember the Bourne Identity.
That movie's so good. I love that movie.
It is. Like, I agree with you. Like, but I really don't remember as much of it as, like, I remember nothing on the Bourne Ultimatum.
That's okay. You don't need to.
Yeah, well, oh, that's not true. I remember when he's, like, coaching Julia Stiles to, like, avoid the cameras, which is always, like, my favorite part of all of those movies. Like in the Bourne Identity, when he sits down, he's like, I know that there are like 5 exits here. I don't know how I know that, but I know. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. It's that kind of stuff that I like. Treadstone. As far as the action scenes, a quick history of Inception. I saw Inception midnight showing, and then the first showing that I could see the next day, and then I think I saw it 2 more times opening weekend. So I saw it a lot in that span of time, and then I've watched it pretty regularly as it's gone.
I don't understand how you like watch movies 3, 4 plus times in theaters.
Yeah.
Good question. So, Inception came out 2010. So I saw it with I saw it with my friends back in 2010 on the midnight showing, and then my brother wanted to see it, so I went with him early the next day to see it. And then you always have like groups of friends who want to go and see it, and I'm like, sure, I'll see it again. Yeah, sure, I'll see it again. I liked it. So that's like over the course of its theatrical release, that's how I saw it. But like most movies, as it's in theaters longer, no one really wants to see it anymore. So I usually see it like a lot in a very short span of time. And then if I still like it, then I'll pick it up on home video and I'll watch it a couple more times. But I like the theater. I like the theater experience. Like the moment when all of the water is like flooding into the Japanese castle. Like that's awesome in the theater. It's not quite as impressive on television, but like that thing like overtook my mind when I first saw it. Or when they first go to Limbo at the end of the movie, and it's just like these really wide shots. Like you can still get a pretty good sense of scale on TV how massive it is, but like when you're in the theater and you feel like you're about the size of Leo and Ellen Page as they're walking in, like it's the impact that it leaves on you is pretty crazy. So like I love all of those moments, which is why like specifically Inception is one of those movies, even more than The Dark Knight Rises, and that was filmed mainly in IMAX. But like Inception was one of those like you really should see it in theaters kind of movies, especially like when the whole room is rotating with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and stuff. It's like that's it's really cool to see that stuff on a big screen. Like I don't know, I guess I could just like move my couch like 3 feet in front of the TV and be like, this is the same. But I don't know. It's like it's cool how Christopher Nolan's like big concepts, he reflected it in like big moments in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the action scenes themselves, just by the time it gets to they're in the third dream within the dream, when they're in the ice hospital, like that's always when like I'm like, come on, why? And it's gotten better over the years because like I understand the motivation of why they have to go one more layer deep. But like that's always the part, and like the Tom Hardy auditioning to be James Bond in the snow scenes, like I kind of blame Nolan that there is a clear setup for it. It's like, oh, we need you to distract all of the like super powered subconscious minions, but it never really feels like that. It just feels like we're having action to have action. And I also blame Lee Smith as an editor, who I appreciate Lee Smith, but I also feel like he over edits every single movie he does. I think I've said that on the podcast before, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because for as long as Inception is, it keeps a really fast pace, and it is. It does. And I think part of that is the editing, because it is so heavily edited, where it's just like shot.
Yeah.
So I can understand the criticism that maybe certain chunks of it are over edited, and certain chunks of it are definitely overscored. But the movie goes so fast that I'll forgive some of the overindulgences in those areas, because overall I think they contribute to the movie a lot more than they detract.
I don't know if I'd say I would agree with that, and maybe because like the other thing I really like about the movie is that, what did you say, it was so overindulgent. I love how indulgent the movie is.
Oh, you mean when I said overscored?
No.
Oh.
I mean, I even mean like the action scenes. Like I don't love them, but I kind of agree with you. I'd rather, with one exception, I would rather have them. Two exceptions, I'd rather have them in there than not, because it is fun to watch a filmmaker just like at a buffet, at like a filmmaking buffet, and he just takes everything and overstuffs himself, and yet still keeps it concise and like like he still makes something that's like extremely watchable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, one thing on the note of the score, I know we give Hans Zimmer flack for constantly recycling his own music.
You give Hans Zimmer flack for constantly recycling his music.
This is one of the most egregious examples, because there's that music that they play at the end when he is like when the plane is landing and he's getting off and going through customs and stuff. So that music is ripped directly from The Thin Red Line, which Hans Zimmer also scored.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You told me about that.
Yeah, it's nuts, because it's like when I was watching The Thin Red Line in my room, like maybe a year or two ago, it gets to the scene where the American troops finally get past the hill and they attack the Japanese sort of forward operating camp, and they're just going in and destroying everything. And it's like this very almost kind of mournful montage at just the level of devastation that's being wrought, even though it's the good guys winning, basically, after all this hardship that they've been through to get there. And it's playing that exact music during this montage of buildings and people being shot up and burned with flamethrowers and things like that. So yeah, that exact music is the same music that plays when Cobb gets to the airport and he's going through customs, and he's like walking by all the people that were on the plane, and they kind of give him that like the subtle like nod, you know. So I just thought that was funny. But yeah, when I was watching The Thin Red Line, you know, I had my door closed and that music was playing really loud because I watch movies with the volume cranked way up. And when I got out of my room, my brother's like, "Hey, were you watching Inception in there?"
You're like, God damn it, Hans Zimmer. What the fuck?
Seriously.
I mean, it is true. And he does so many movies, though. Like, in a given year, he does like 4 or 5 that, like, it's bound to be some crossover. And then there are some that, like Dark Phoenix. If it weren't for his score in Dark Phoenix, the movie would be completely forgettable instead of pretty forgettable.
Well, and the other thing is, like, with Inception, you know, you saw it 30 times in theaters or whatever.
Yeah. Like 100, right? Yeah.
100 times. You saw it 3 times a day, every day for 2 months.
I was like that guy at the Spider-Man premiere who was like, I have a ticket for every showing on opening day.
Oh,
like, no, dude, no,
bro.
But yeah, that's what I aspire to. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, you know, I saw it in theaters when it came out, and I liked it, and I thought it was interesting, but I didn't love it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
really,
yeah, it's like, oh, that was neat, but you know, it wasn't great. I liked it, but wasn't crazy about it. And then it's one of those things where it's like it almost seemed like once or twice a year, every year for the next 10 years now, you know, it would pop up on TV and I would catch it somewhere kind of around the beginning and I would sit there and watch it the whole way through. And my brother and I would do this all the time. And every time we watched it, we liked the movie more and more and more, to the point where, like, maybe 3 or 4 years in, we were watching Inception on, you know, Showtime or whatever for the 12th time. We're like, fuck, this movie's amazing. Because it's one of those things where it's like, when I first saw it in theaters, I thought it was like a fun movie in terms of, just because it was so ambitious and so complicated and how layered it was. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm glad that, you know, someone put all this effort into constructing such a complex but tight and easy to understand movie. And then it wasn't until later that I started to appreciate all of the psychological aspects, all of the character stuff, and all of the emotional content of the movie. And I started to kind of enjoy Cobb's character arc. And, you know, he's always talking about how Fisher needs catharsis for the idea to take place.
Right.
And I was able to enjoy his catharsis at the end of the movie more and more every time I saw it as well. Mm-hmm. But that's also why, like, that's also why, you know, all of the music in the movie is instantly recognizable to me and my brother, to the point where I could be watching The Thin Red Line behind closed doors, and my brother, based on the musical cues, is just like, were you watching Inception?
So I think, Mike, you were with me. Like, in college, we had a teacher who showed us the first half of Inception and then the second half of another movie. Were you there? Were we in the same screening for that, Mike?
Yeah, we were.
Okay. Because did you watch did you have the afternoon one or the morning one?
I think I had the afternoon.
So you got to watch.
Was this 101B?
Yeah, with the teacher who would always, like, sit with us and eat snacks.
No. It was 85C. It would have been 85C, I think, because it was like World Cinema. I think it was either 85C or 101C, because it wasn't him. He would have showed us the entire movie, and this took place after the 60s. So one of the first half of one of them was it was like I went to the one where they showed the first half of Inception and the last half of the other movie.
Because I know I had a class with both of you guys, and we were all in the same discussion group, but I didn't know who you two were.
Okay. I think I remember that. I think you remember you telling me about that. But we watched the first half of Inception, and, like, the first half of Inception, like, I know you said the whole movie moves. The first half is incredibly tight. I love the first, except for the Mombasa chase. I love the first half of Inception. I love the fact that they, like, the way that they slowly explain all of the components of how the dream world work and slowly explain all of the components of Cobb and Maul's relationship. But then we abruptly cut the movie in half, stopped like right before I think like Fisher was going to talk to Tom Berenger, and put on the second half of like this Spanish language movie about dreams and sleep, and it was so hard to watch because the pacing of the two movies was just completely different, and like the watchability of one compared to the other one was just like leaps and bounds different. So like there's like I give Lee Smith a lot of crap internally for his moment to moment editing and the way he edits some of the action scenes, but it is true that this movie in particular, for having such kind of strange subject matter, it's incredibly easy to watch. And of course part of it is like Christopher Nolan associated a lot of common themes that people have when they dream with common elements that he put in the movie to make it easier for people to understand. But the other part is it's crafted in a way that's incredibly watchable. I had to get that in there. Because that, like, I don't know, I'm still so surprised at how two movies could be so completely different pacing and tone wise. Like, to be about the same subject matter, but just one is a very, like, the way Hollywood crafts their movies to make them really watchable and digestible is insane. And, like, it is kind of impressive how Hollywood does that. Any thought, like, I know I brought up the cast before and how I didn't really like Marion Cotillard in it, but anyone have thoughts on the cast? Or better yet, can anyone name Ellen Page's character?
Ariadne.
I had to watch part of the reason I watched it so many times was because they only say her name twice in the entire movie. And I'd always be like, it starts with an A, but I can never read. It starts with an A. What is it? I know it's help Theseus. Who is it?
Something about mazes. I don't know.
Something about mazes. I don't know. Another guy was named Minotaur, but in like, Japanese. And there you got Saito. No, I'm just kidding. That's not how it works.
Can I just bring up the fact that, during that snow part in the movie, and Fisher just went down, he's been shot, Tom Hardy turns, he's like, you guys go, we got this. And he turns to Saito, and you see Saito just bleeding out, half dead, and he's like, he's got my back. And he's like, any guys who come here, Saito's got them. And he's just like, ugh. And he hands him a grenade, and he just walks out of the room.
Here you go, Saito. We'll put that lead.
What? What was that about?
Dude, I love Ken Watanabe.
I couldn't let this stream end without bringing that up.
The many really strange choices. God, I actually really like Eames. He's fantastic. I thought he would annoy the shit out of me the first time I saw the movie, but he was the best character. And I was like, who's this Tom Hardy, and why is he doing all of the stunt work?
Yeah.
And now, years later, it's like, damn, man, I wish Tom Hardy was in the movie more.
I know.
And he's already in a shit ton of the movie.
I was going to say, I kind of forgot how much of the movie he was in. Mm-hmm. Because he does a lot. Yeah. Especially in the final act. He's Mr., badass action hero just leaping off of buildings and shooting people and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Tossing grenades and C4.
In the same white clothing that all the bad guys are in, so good luck distinguishing what's going on. And that's the thing, though. That last scene, it's like, okay, what is he actually doing? Oh, he's setting C4 to blow the whole thing. I had to watch the movie 5 times to figure that out. Because I just did not understand, because of the way they kept cutting back to Yusuf in the car falling down in super slow motion, and then they would cut to Joseph Gordon-Levitt looking sinister in an elevator, and then Tom Hardy is maybe shooting someone or maybe setting something, or I don't know. I know I'm harping on this a lot.
I know it is weird because you do have that feeling of oh, that's why we have this action sequence. He has to lay C4 to blow up the building in a way that it won't blow up the people inside, but cause them to fall down.
Right. Mm. But whereas with like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where he's like, how do I cause people to fall without gravity? And it's like all very clearly shot. Like you could tell that they were all like frozen and didn't want to be out there shooting the scenes with Tom Hardy. And like, all right, just get him shooting in there. Okay, good, and shot there. Although the snowmobile with like the tires that have like every individual tire on some of the trucks have like tank treads on it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't notice that the first time I saw it. But yeah.
What's also weird is, there's that bit in the snow where Cobb is sniping various, soldiers or whatever, and Ellen Page is like, wait, so does that, if you're shooting pieces of his subconscious, are you killing parts of his mind? And you're like, he's been doing this the entire movie. Why are you asking him now?
Why are you just asking this now?
And the other thing is like there's this like not very confident no from like Leo as he's shooting them. He's just like no.
They're just projections. It's fine.
Are you killing his subconscious? No. Cut to like another he's dying.
What if they get off, like they come out of the dream at the end of the movie and Cillian Murphy's just a vegetable? He's just drooling into his lap because they killed so many of his projections.
Is that why like they can convince him that his father actually cared about him?
They had to dumb him down a little bit, soften his brain up.
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at the ending. There's like the really sweet, like cathartic way of like, oh, he's finally come to terms with his father and he does believe his father loves him. And then there's the other part that like these charlatans broke into his mind and convinced him that the father that absolutely hated him in fact really loved him. like, oh, we're just gonna completely turn this guy's personality with his father around. His father absolutely hated him. There's no way he would, and then like it turns out he's like, oh yeah, I loved good old daddy. It's like, we have an article from you a week ago that this, that just completely destroys him. What are you doing, Fisher?
And that's what always struck me about the ending is that, like, yeah, when you first watch it, or I think when a lot of people first watch it, certainly when I did, you do feel that kind of catharsis when he reconciles with his dad, and then, like, the second or third time, you're like, wait a minute, this is all fake, Not only he didn't reconcile with anyone.
Not only that, but it's all fake so that a businessman can make more money. like this whole like catharsis is so like it hits you on such a great emotional level until you realize it's like completely cynical.
Yeah. Well, but that's kind of, I think, again, Christopher Nolan likes to really triple down on all his metaphors. I mean, it's the idea with movies, especially like big popular movies. It's kind of, there is a lot of emotional manipulation in them. There is a lot of psychological manipulation. They want to get you to feel a certain way. They want you to have this cathartic moment when it's really just a bunch of like suits in a room screaming at writers, your script isn't this enough, or Harvey Weinstein chopping a movie to bits because he has a big ego, not because he's a good editor. So it's just like there is kind of that cynical, exploitation of the audience's perception in filmmaking, and that's kind of laid out very openly in Inception because they cynically exploit Fisher's emotions to get him to react a certain way.
Yeah, but I think like the sort of like the cynicism behind the emotional manipulation, which again, Christopher Nolan is never really known for his emotional manipulation as far as like catharsis or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just Hans Zimmer does all of the heavy lifting in that department.
Well, no, I would say especially for that moment, like Cillian Murphy is literally killing it.
Yeah, he is. Well, I mean, all the actors kill it, I think, in this movie.
Yeah, well, and that's like I love that moment where like Tom Hardy goes into the safe and like you see Fisher like completely breaking down, and part of you is like breaking down with him, and it cuts to like Eames, and he just like is watching this and absorbing it, and he's kind of like nods twice and then sets the bomb off, and it's just like, oh man, it's like a perfect moment. Could have been a little bit longer. They could have stretched it out just a tad bit longer, but like a perfect moment, and it's like that's incredible. Of course, then you like go back and think about it, and it's like, oh yeah, except it's all for like for like breaking up for a better marketplace so that Saito can make more money and blah 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 blah. But I never thought about that until just this moment.
Yeah, well, and they also do try to frame it, or at least Saito tries to frame it as like a humanitarian thing. It's like the Fisher Corporation is so massive that they will eventually have a monopoly of all of the global energy sector or whatever. So it's like, you're really doing a good thing for the world, Cobb, by destroying this one company.
Making me richer.
By making me richer, yeah.
But it's okay, Cobb, because I didn't kill you, even though I killed, the other guy. I killed Lucas Haas. For what he deserved. And
it's interesting that the Pin and the detective from Brick are reunited.
I know. I always think about that. I always think about that when I see that when I watch the beginning of the movie. I always think about that.
Yeah, it's funny. Just one note on Brick. Like when I first saw that movie, I'm like, God damn! Like this whole area that it's filmed in looks really familiar. And then I found out that it was filmed in San Clemente.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, there you go. And the high school is San Clemente High School.
Yeah, that's because that's where Rian Johnson went.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, San Clemente High School was always our like last sort of preseason opponent for baseball before we'd get into the regular season.
Okay, so another fun fact. Since you're probably really familiar with the baseball field at San Clemente High School. So they have the ending that's in the movie. Mike, have you seen Brick?
I have not.
Okay, I would say it's worth a watch. I like it. But the last scene in the final movie, they went in and they completely reshot it. The original ending they had was all done in one long take. So like if you ever like find a copy of the Blu-ray or find the original ending as it was filmed, you can look at it and like relive your moments on the baseball field, because it's like, oh yeah, it's like not cut around. It's literally like the camera circles around them. So you're like, hey, I remember that spot. I know that spot. I know that spot. So fun facts about Brick. But I do want to talk about the cast. I don't know what I want to talk about the cast on, but I do want to talk about the cast because
you want to talk about how great Tom Hardy is.
I mean, always. And how Tom Hardy should have just been Cobb. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that would have been something.
Well, like that, it is actually probably either my favorite or my second favorite Leonardo DiCaprio role, even though I kind of just shit upon him every time I watch it. Like, I think it's like genuinely like either my favorite or my second favorite role of his.
Yeah, I like his. I think he does a really good job in the movie, and I think this might be my favorite role of his.
The only other role that comes close for me is Catch Me If You Can.
I thought you were gonna say Arnie Grape.
Arnie. His no, it was actually the couple seasons he was on Growing Pains or whatever. We could make another beach reference. It's role in The Beach.
Oh no.
No one is remembered fondly for The Beach. But like he's kind of, I like Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and I like it because he's not just completely on the edge of his emotions the entire movie.
Yeah. There's his character and the way he plays it is very unpretentious in this, where I feel like a lot of his other movies, especially more recently, are he's just begging for awards a lot of the time.
Yeah, this is like one of the few movies where I felt like he was completely in sync with his director the whole way through. But of course he does have those moments of like really corny, hammy acting, and he has my favorite meme of all time when he's talking about the Mr. Charles thing. Actually, on Mr. Charles quickly, one of my favorite like really lame moments in the movie is when Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Ellen Page are sitting on the bench, and it's like, there goes Mr. Charles, and it cuts to like Leonardo DiCaprio like looking up with like this cocksure walk as he's walking forward. Every time I just imagine Joseph Gordon-Levitt be like, there goes Mr. Charles. What a douchebag. Like, let's try this thing on the most important mission of our life. Let's try a gambit that's never worked. So I do love that moment.
It's also interesting how, like, you know, when Leo deploys the Mr. Charles gambit and is revealing to Fisher that he's in a dream, you know, his subconscious starts looking for the dreamer, who in this case is Arthur, you know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. And he says to Ellen Page, like, give me a kiss as a distraction. And Ellen Page looks so just viscerally uncomfortable.
Well, I would say, like, I don't know why, but I would say throughout that whole sequence when they're in the hotel, she just is not very comfortable in it. And I think it's partially because of the outfit that they have her in.
That's
like,
part of it, probably.
I mean, the other obvious one is, but...
She doesn't like guys.
Yeah.
Yes. But, like, she does a good... But, I don't know, she sold it well enough, I guess. I don't know, the whole thing's... I don't know, almost any romance in a Christopher Nolan movie kind of comes off as awkward for me. Or like someone has to do some serious heavy lifting. Because, like, Bruce Wayne, I never really thought he was that into anyone, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Batman movies play very hard into the fact that Bruce Wayne is a loner who doesn't like or care too much about anyone. Especially because, like, when he is out in public pretending to be Bruce Wayne, he's just full on, like, Patrick Bateman, like, hamming it up, kind of, with this weird plastic smile.
Clearly
Has
Clearly he has issues. Yeah. But, like, they like sell this narrative of, like, Rachel is the only person he'll ever love. Rachel is the only person he'll ever... And then, like, with Talia and fucking Dark Knight Rises, it's like, yeah, I guess I don't have any money. Let's make out and have sex. Like, what?
Yep.
What? Alfred, I'm instantly in love with her. I'm going to show her all of my secrets now. Not only is there a nuclear reactor here, but I have a bat cave. And no, I'm not talking about my penis. I'm talking
What?
about,
That's...
I mean, she just, like, looks at him. She's like, Bruce, what? No, what?
I think you're mixing up your innuendos.
I am. But anyway, I don't think Nolan is particularly adept at, like, romance scenes in general.
No, that's fair to say.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
There's a reason that all of Cobb and Maul's relationship was done in a Terrence Malick style montage scene.
You mean other than the fact that Christopher Nolan loves stealing things from Terrence Malick?
Clearly. Oh, I'm going to steal the composer and have him use the exact same musical cues in my movie.
Well, the way that Nolan structures and edits The Prestige is based on The Thin Red Line.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, I can understand the journal entries, because I know that, like, the voiceovers work, but is The Thin Red Line, it's also told non-linearly?
It's told well, there's a main story that's told linearly, but flashbacks are cut in at will, and there's nothing kind of marking them apart from the main story.
Mm.
So the idea of cutting freely back and forth between what's happening right now and events in the past, using only just hard cuts, no fades, no wipes or any other kind of transition. Nolan got that idea from watching Thin Red Line.
Oh, interesting.
Did I just derail the entire conversation?
I know, I was just waiting to say, like, don't worry about the silence. I cut that out normally.
I know, well, it's just like, silence is okay in real life, but on a podcast, which I think is meant to be entertaining, not so much.
I know, it's like okay, well, we're going to contemplate how, like, Christopher Nolan creatively borrows from Terrence Malick, and we're going to do it in a 60-second silent moment.
I know, a moment of silence for Terrence Malick's film techniques. But because every artist freely borrows from all of their inspiration, and it's interesting because I think a lot of Christopher Nolan's inspiration is not freely accessible to most people, or it's not as obvious. The way that, like, Tarantino's inspiration, he just lays it all out for you. Like,
right.
It's like, hey, if you liked this one shot in Reservoir Dogs, you might like this movie that I stole the shot from. Or if you watch a lot of movies like him, it's going to be like, see, he's cutting his ear off. It's like Django. Get it? Get it? Because Django, the guy gets his ear cut off.
Like, he's much more like, or Christopher Nolan is much more careful about how he pulls, because
he's not pointing directly to his inspiration and saying,
like,
hey, look at this.
The sequence with the rotating hotel room is like, oh yeah, we wanted to bring back that old technique from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's like, oh, that's weird. I guess there should be a 2001: Space Odyssey reference in freaking Inception. Oh, but he dresses it. It's like we were talking about in Peter Jackson's Bad Taste, The Foundation. A lot of these ideas he works into his own particular foundation. So as like Tarantino has like a surface level of like, aren't these movie references fun surface level? Nolan's is much more. I feel like I've used baked in a lot, but like Nolan uses these as foundational elements to his movies.
Yeah, well, I mean, Nolan borrows heavily from Terrence Malick, I think, in the same way that Paul Thomas Anderson borrows a lot from Robert Altman. There's a lot of things that Altman does that Anderson really likes, so he takes them, but he incorporates them into his own style and makes them his, the same way Nolan makes all of the kind of Terrence Malick-isms his own.
Or like they're things that aren't that obvious, because if you told me that there's a clear line between Paul Thomas Anderson and Robert Altman, like we were talking about a couple weeks ago, I would be like, I don't see it. I don't see it unless I look really hard, and then I can kind of see it.
Yeah.
So like it's the same with like I can definitely see the connection between Malick and Nolan.
Yeah. But every filmmaker has...
But only if I think about it.
Every filmmaker has like the other filmmakers that they love and that they're going to borrow a lot from. It's the same way with George Lucas and Kurosawa in the 70s, or George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola in the 2000s.
Well, the weird one I thought was Steven Spielberg and Frank Capra. Like, that's always been kind of like a strange one to me, but it makes sense. It's just like, I guess so.
I mean, David Lynch is a huge fan of Mya Deren, which, if you remember from our old film classes, I think we had to watch Meshes of the Afternoon at one point.
Yeah.
So David Lynch is a huge fan of that movie.
I
liked it too.
I'm guessing Mike doesn't feel as strongly.
Or he feels strongly the opposite.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
Like,
yeah, well, I think, like, quickly on Meshes of the Afternoon, if you haven't seen it, you can see it on YouTube. And the one that they have by the Japanese composer doing the music is, like, is really fantastic. But I think someone posed it as, like, Citizen Kane was a movie where Orson Welles had a very high budget and complete creative control. Mya Deren, for Meshes of the Afternoon, had complete creative control, but she didn't have the money. So she was able to creatively use the environment around her to make something and retain creative control. And I always found that really interesting to look at, that you can draw a parallel between Citizen Kane and Meshes of the Afternoon. I was always like, oh, wow, that's really fascinating.
Mike, you are not a fan?
I'm not a fan. That movie was weird as hell. Like, wasn't that the one with the mirror face dude?
Yes.
Yeah. And the key.
No. And the key, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think I fell asleep halfway through.
Dang, dude. The movie's only like 10 minutes, so that means you fell asleep 5 minutes in.
Oh, poor Mya Deren. Like, I think it was just shot with, like, her and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And, like, a key. That's it. I don't know. It's really cool. Like, and I can definitely... I don't have as much experience with David Lynch, but I can definitely see how, like, how she would have had a huge influence on it.
Well, especially because, like, David Lynch loves to use... David Lynch does a lot of his own sound design for his movies, and sound plays a big role into how he creates atmosphere and how he tells the story. Even to the point where in Twin Peaks Season 3, it literally opens with someone telling Agent Cooper to listen, because the sound design of the show will help him solve whatever mystery he's trying to solve. But I think that and that element, and also the way he uses sound that's not that doesn't seem right in a given scene to create mood is very similar to Meshes of the Afternoon.
I don't think it'd be under the wheels if we don't somehow work in some David Lynch reference every 3 or 4 episodes. I was gonna say like every episode, but I feel like it's been a while since we've mentioned David Lynch.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one of these days we can throw a David Lynch movie under the wheels.
Oh, dude, we should definitely. Let's do Dune.
Oh no, no.
It's actually funny because like you mentioned Mya Deren, complete creative control, and it does lead back to and dreamlike feelings, and it does lead back to Inception in the same way of like Christopher Nolan really did have a lot of creative control on it, and he was able to do what he really wanted to do with it. Which it's really cool.
I think what I admire Christopher Nolan for almost more than anything is that, you know, we're living in a world of endless prequels, sequels, reboots, and whatnot. And, you know, blockbuster filmmaking is essentially like infantilized. It's just, it's kind of that Disney model of reliving your childhood memories over and over and over again because our culture never taught you how to be an adult. So it's easier to kind of recede into a prior stage of development than it is to confront the world in any sort of meaningful way. And that's kind of why nostalgia-driven filmmaking is so profitable. But Nolan is the one guy who gets massive budgets to do whatever he wants, and it's always interesting, and it's always kind of respectful of the audience's intelligence. And like, I've seen everything except for Following that he's done, and he hasn't made a bad movie.
He hasn't.
And
I've seen Following.
There you go. I mean, he's not made a bad movie. He's the only guy getting massive budgets to do whatever he wants. It's all interesting stuff that, you know, has more to it than, oh, remember when you were a kid and life was better than it is now, in your kind of warped memory of things of a past that doesn't actually exist.
Weren't the 50s great? No, we didn't have Google.
I know, the 50s were terrible. Can you imagine how bad like people's breath stank in the 50s?
Dude, think about no air conditioning.
Oh God.
Like,
can you imagine how many people died of the flu in the 50s
ugh.
versus now? Like,
or like going to a hospital and they're like, oh no, it's fine. Take this uranium-laced water.
Oh, I know.
Jesus.
Yeah,
like,
the 50s are terrible.
Gabe's like, especially all the people who are obsessed with like, oh man, 80s culture is great. It's like, look at it through a nostalgic lens all you want, but like,
watch American Psycho and tell me how great the 80s were.
Like, oh hey, you remember traveling in your car where you couldn't use the air conditioning on uphill roads because fucking burn out? I know I'm obsessing on this air conditioning thing, but like the fact that we have really good climate control that doesn't fuck around too often is amazing. The fact that like we have refrigerators that like refrigerators and freezers it's amazing technology that I have no idea how it works, and it kind of frightens me, but it's great. And like our laptops, like the fact that we can communicate, the fact that the majority of people right now, or that a lot of people can get work done and still get paid because they're connected to an interconnected network of other computers is like, you know, you wouldn't get that in the 50s. They'd just be like, you feel bad? Oh, come on in anyways and get you $98.
Yeah.
Like,
so
sorry to spiral out of control.
No, that's fine. I'm about to launch into an extended rant that I will somehow find a way to tie back into Christopher Nolan. I think that, you know, the people at the levers of power in the world right now, especially in American society, are all super duper old. I mean, you look at like the 3 viable presidential candidates right now were all born in the 1940s, for example. And that's very telling. It's very telling that the only 3 people that are being taken seriously for president are born in the 1940s. And at least 2 of them represent something that I think that a lot of people who are in power right now believe or secretly want. And it's like, you know, they have this memory of the world that they grew up in, and they want to die in a world that closely resembles that as much as possible. And they want to ensure that at any cost to future generations. They don't care how much damage they do. They want to hold the world still until they're all dead, so that they can at least go out in a environment similar to the environment they grew up in. And I think that kind of, because that has created such dystopian possibilities for younger generations, I think that younger generations have also fed into older generations' nostalgia, where it's like, we don't have hope for the future, so we also want to kind of have this Freudian desire to recede back into the womb, back into childhood. And it's crippling, because our whole civilization can't move forward because of that. And you see it's littered all over popular culture. Everything's backward looking. Everything is, remember when you were a kid, remember how great it was. Everything about the future is going to be terrible. The future is going to be awful. It's going to be a dystopian nightmare. And I think Christopher Nolan is like the one filmmaker who, on a big scale, a blockbuster scale, in front of everyone, is saying the opposite. He's saying, like, you know, there are new things we can do. There are new places we can go. There is an exciting future waiting for us. And he's making a shit ton of money saying that, which I think is kind of hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. It's actually funny that you say that, because like the one movie that he does that's actually about our future starts off bleak and ends in almost obnoxiously hopeful.
Oh yeah, Interstellar's definitely all about that.
Yeah,
it is based on the idea that the future is brighter.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but like the main character, one of the main characters, the Jessica Chastain character, her whole belief is like looking forward in a much better way than they did it in Tomorrowland, of looking forward to the future, and like, and we can overcome, and we can use science, and we shouldn't limit our exploration. Part of it is looking back, but part of it's also looking forward to keeping your mind open to new ideas. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, did you have anything you wanted to say about this? Because I was actually going to talk about Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker, career-wise. But did you have any?
I just really know Nolan is just the big blockbuster guy. Like, whenever you see Nolan on the fucking director's list, like, you know you're coming in good. I've seen Memento. Actually, speaking of Memento, I kind of saw little tidbits of Memento in Inception, actually. How he's like, the whole flashback, doesn't know what's real kind of aspect. So I see like some of his past films in Inception.
Yeah, that's true. You can think of the totems as like the tattoos, you know?
Yeah. But all in all, like, Nolan's a great filmmaker. He made the Bat trilogy. And I don't know if you guys know, but I'm a huge Batman fan.
I mean, Gabe and I talked a little bit about this, about how Christopher Nolan completely revolutionized the superhero genre with like the Batman films by making them like grim, dark, and everything like that. But like, he still kept a certain level of comic book campiness. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the only thing people took from that, specifically in Warner Brothers, was like, grim dark is the way to go.
Well, yeah, it's like, actually, I don't know how many times we've said this, but it's like, you know, it's like Doug Liman with The Bourne Identity. It's like George Miller with Mad Max Fury Road. These guys come along, they make a movie or two that really changes the game, and then everyone takes the wrong lessons from them.
I would actually I'd even say like parts of Avengers as well. Like, it's like they took the wrong lessons from Avengers.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Well, I mean, Universal with their whole the dark monster movie universe definitely took the wrong lessons from the Avengers.
Oh God. DC did too. Even Marvel took the wrong lessons from it. It was their fucking movie. God, I can't wait for the interconnected Disney animated universe. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We already have that.
Dude, I wouldn't be surprised. So I saw in the news recently that Tamir Morrison's going to come back as Boba Fett in Mandalorian Season 2.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck. Why not just bring back Darth Maul and Darth Vader and Darth Sidious at this point for The Mandalorian season 2? Like, fuck it. Just remake all of the Star Wars movies beat for beat identically with a younger cast, and maybe fix some of the complaints that fans have had over the years, like you do with your that don't need to be fixed, like they do with all the Disney animated movie adapt to live action shit show that they've had, because that's what we're heading towards. We're heading towards just a beat for beat remake of Star Wars in 5 years with Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker.
Well, no, in 5 years he'll be too old, so they'll have to they'll just get like
digitally de-aged Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker
with a fake with like Mark Hamill's face on it. Like, wait a second, why didn't you just get someone else? I'm glad that Christopher Nolan's out there making his one movie every 3 years. 2
to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. He's like, guys, I can't write fast enough. But like, it is interesting, like, on Christopher Nolan's career, because I think Gabe and I kind of shit talk Interstellar a lot, which I enjoy it for the most part. But I think it is very interesting that like Christopher Nolan went way out and went like very big on his ideas for Interstellar, and had the presence of mind to kind of pull everything back and go really down and dirty, but still really expensive with Dunkirk, and like refocus his attention on something like uber specific. Because like Interstellar is still pretty good, but coming off of Interstellar, like if he had done Tenet right after Interstellar, I think it might have been like, Christopher Nolan, what are you doing? So he kind of had to like reset and refocus himself, kind of like how Spielberg had to every couple of years when he'd like do something that was really, where he was like really outside of his depth, or he like really was too self-indulgent. Hook. And then he'd go back and he'd do like Jurassic Park and like refocus himself. I think it's smart that like Nolan had the presence of mind to be like, maybe I shouldn't do Galactus facing the sun.
Well, even then though, Dunkirk was really ambitious and is like a masterpiece in its own right.
Yeah, I would, but like it's a lot more focused, and and I think my favorite thing is that it kind of goes back to the basics of Christopher Nolan that I like, because it plays with time manipulation, not necessarily in a way that it affects the characters, but it affects the audience.
Yeah,
and it even though it is a super expensive film, just like the way that they shot it makes it feel a little bit more down and dirty. Like the things that I still don't really love but are in there still, like the fact that the color timing on most of the film is just all over the place because they didn't do a digital intermediary to color it. They just went straight from the 60 millimeter film or the IMAX cameras, and it's really tight. It's not a long movie. I think it's only an hour and 50 minutes. I think it's less than 2 hours. So like I love that he kind of refocused himself for his next project, kind of just decompress after so many like epically scaled projects. I don't know. I mean, obviously like, that it was still an epic scale because they still had, cast of thousands of extras on there, and they printed out a bunch of cardboard cutouts for some of the scenes where there were people on there and stuff. But, shit, I want to rewatch Dunkirk. I haven't watched that in a while.
Yeah.
How are you holding up, Mike?
Doing good.
All right. Usually these last a long time, but like there's something about Inception that I don't want it to end yet. Kind of like the movie. I understand the movie's really long, but I kind of just don't want the movie to end.
Movie's 2.5. That like last 30 minutes, I would say, is just like, really, there's 30 minutes left.
That's why like I always, I know exactly what you mean. Because that's why the snow part, like... Yeah,
that like right when you get to the snow part, I hit pause to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, shit, there's a half an hour left.
Yeah. Well, it's, like, I was joking with Gabe about it, but, like, the first hour of the movie is just explaining how all of it works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have to take an hour to set it up. So, like, you can make the argument that the first hour of the movie is the first act, and you normally don't get that. So by the time that they get to the brass tacks of it all, they still have a whole nother movie to cover.
Pretty much. So I'm just like, oh shit, there's 30 more minutes. Like, the movie should have ended. They're at the door.
I think that's how I feel about Interstellar, though. Is like Interstellar is so long, and then they're like, okay, we have 3 planets to explore, and it's like, okay, all right, but we're already an hour into the damn movie.
Yeah.
Like they have to explore 2 planets, and they have the whole Jessica Chastain like side story going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my god, dude, like that's a movie that, and even then he falls into the black hole, and you're like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah, I only saw Interstellar once, so I only had to go through it once. But it was good. It's just long.
It's very long, and and that's coming from someone who likes it and watches it every now and then.
Like, I was watching The Dark Knight Rises last night, actually, but I got to the prison and I was just I had to go to bed.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so long.
And
I love Batman.
Oh, that movie. But that's also like, I will say this, in The Dark Knight Rises, as soon as he gets to the prison and Bane like says his spiel, like all of a sudden Bane is no longer an important character in that movie.
Yeah, once you realize that Bane is not the one who escaped from the prison, it's just like, whatever.
Well, I mean, but even before then, like the last act of The Dark Knight Rises is like Bane doesn't do anything. He's just not threatening at all. Batman learns to punch his mask.
Yeah.
And like, but I'm like, I'm watching it, I'm like, what the fuck? Why didn't he do that to begin with? Like, what was the, like, could he not punch his mask? I'm pretty sure I saw him punch his face. It's like, what? Because it didn't make the right sound, it doesn't count? Like, tink! It's like, what kind of video game is this? Is this targeting computer off or something? So.
Well, he might have been thinking that it was just a way to disguise his identity.
I mean, but what I mean is, like, in the movie, I think, like, that first fight scene, he actually, like, punches Bane's face. But it doesn't.
He does.
Yeah, but it doesn't make that tink sound, and, like, if it doesn't make the tink sound, it doesn't count as, like, hitting his mask. So, like, I don't know, like, the line is very thinly drawn. Again, another movie that I really love. Another movie I really like.
I love The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
I like The Dark Knight more, but The Dark Knight Rises was good.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I think Rises is probably the weakest of the 3, but there's still a lot to like there.
It's kind of like, I feel like Dark Knight Rises is like the guilty pleasure one. It's like, it's not as good. It is it is incredibly like excessive. There's a lot of ideas that don't really gel out. There's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't 100% work, but by God, it's like it's pretty fun. The stuff that works, works really nicely. It's just a lot more fun and goofy, I think, than some of the than like Batman Begins, where they're like really earnest and trying to be like, we want to be a legitimate superhero movie. And then in The Dark Knight, where Nolan is like, I finally have done it. I've done the perfect superhero noir movie. It's like, I don't give 2 shits about Dark Knight Rises. Let's just spend the money and have fun.
Pretty much.
But I kind of like some of that stuff. I think that's the only reason that I appreciate Episode 9 of Star Wars. It's like no, none of this makes sense. Yes, it's all stupid, but there's kind of like the first half of the movie, there's kind of like a guilty pleasure about it. Mm-hmm. Where it's like,
dude, I secretly love Episode 9.
I will say, like, after watching Episode 4, I went back and started watching Episode 9. But now I'm at the final fight in Exegol, and I'm just like, there's 45 minutes left, and I just could not care less. Like, I know what's coming, but it's all just so stupid.
It was such fan service, but I was so appreciative.
But that's the thing, it's like, that, like, the stuff in Star Wars that doesn't make sense is kind of the stuff that I like. Like, light speed skipping doesn't make any sense, but it looks cool. Okay, I'm fine with that. Like, the Holdo maneuver, like, it looks cool. Okay, I'm fine with that. Like, if shit looks cool, I'm fine with that. That's why I was okay with the Knights of Ren until they were like, we're the Knights of Ren. We don't do shit. And it's like, oh, it's not. No.
We don't do shit except, like, get beat up and die.
Except die to Adam Driver in his fucking sweats.
Yeah. The good boy sweater.
Yeah. Like, when he threw his lightsaber, I was like, why the fuck are you throwing your lightsaber away if you have to take on the Emperor? You don't think a giant weapon like that might be useful? Fucking... Or the other thing that I think a lot of people have a problem with, but I think is, like, goofy fun, is, like, they take the planet-killing gun from what was Starkiller Base and put it on every single one of, like, the other ones, and, like,
Yeah.
like, Oscar Isaac is just the perfect audience surrogate when he's just like, of course they it's like, they have those planet-killing guns on every ship? Of course they do, because of course they do. Like, yeah, dude. Yeah, and you know what? It doesn't make any sense, but you know what? It's more fun the more ridiculous that shit gets. I don't want an explanation. Somehow Palpatine is back. You know what? I've come full circle. I don't want to know. I'm happy. I'm happy with Oscar Isaac's explanation. Somehow he's back.
Yep.
Like, but I can't take the movie seriously. Like, I don't think it's a work of art. I don't even necessarily would say it's a good movie. I just think it's like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, for me at least. Not so much for Gabe. I'd be amazed if I would literally be amazed if you ever go near episode 9.
Yeah, it's bad. I think pretty much everything that's come out since Revenge of the Sith, I just sort of pretend it isn't real.
We're at different spectrums as far as, like, Star Wars fandom goes. Like, I just don't take any of it really seriously anymore. Like, there's no reason to get super upset over anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I just pretend it's not real. So it's like, oh, it's just some silly, like, speculative fan show or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and
these are just very expensive Reddit threads where people discuss the movies.
Well, it is also kind of, like, upsetting that it's kind of upsetting to me when fandom, because we talked about lore and how much of a joke lore is in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of, I guess maybe one of the reasons why Dark Knight Rises is kind of not as good is because, like, in The Dark Knight, they kind of, but didn't really care about lore as far as, like, connections with Batman Begins. And then The Dark Knight Rises is nothing but connections to Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, almost to the point where it, like, starts to weigh down a bit of the movie itself, where it's like, really? We really have to go here? But, like, it's kind of disturbing to see just how cheap, and I don't really blame J.J. Abrams that much, because he only had 2 years to do it, or a year and a half to put it together, and that's a lot to put together for, like, the thing that's going to, like, wrap everything up, which the actual answer is, well, you don't try to wrap everything up, but, like, the fact that they let the fan base influence the direction that they went so much, and that it's become a recurring thing with things like Westworld, Episode 9, I'm sure to a certain extent, like, the rehiring of James Gunn for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I don't actually have a problem with, but, like, the fact that, like, they felt like they needed to fire him in the first place. Like, it's great that fandom is getting involved in some of this stuff, but the fandom also only contributes between $5 and $50 to any one property, not counting merchandise. Like, the idea that one person with a keyboard on the internet who probably isn't doing their fair share to keep, like, the franchise moving in a positive direction have so much influence over these decisions that could cost literally millions of dollars is ludicrous and ridiculous. And it's bad because they're not judiciously figuring out ways to approach it creatively, which is the bigger problem. So, anyway, rant done.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think, you know, I used to find lore kind of interesting, and then
I still do.
Reading too many comic books and reading too many books about Star Wars, I think, kind of ruined lore for me, because as soon as it's time for lore to impact the story in any meaningful way, it's always stupid. So that kind of was just like, you know what? I think we're all better off not knowing and just speculating about how things in these fictional, you know, sci-fi and fantasy universes work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why... go ahead.
I've also read a couple of Star Wars books myself just to get into the extended universe and start to understand more, but now that shit's just not canon, I feel like I kind of wasted my time.
Well, but I mean, as long as you enjoyed them, you know.
Yeah, I love them.
Like, the other thing, too, is, like, Star Wars is so messy. Like, I think anyone can just sort of pick and choose what they want to be canon. Mm-hmm. Like, in my mind, the first 6 movies and then Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars are canon, and everything else is not. Yeah. Because that's how I want it to be.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people checked out. I think a lot of people checked out at episode 8, but a lot of people checked out when they were like, "Oh yeah, no, that all of the original novels and stuff, all that stuff that you've been reading that built the universe in a different direction and didn't just make it about one family of people who like control the whole relationships of the galaxy." Mm-hmm. As soon as they wiped that out and then just singularly focused back on like Luke and Darth Vader and Leia and like close the universe off, I think that's where a lot of other people like checked out, because that's where my care for like making sure everything is lore specific came in. That, and because I did really appreciate episode 8, but I also realized that in episode 9 the stuff I appreciated was the ridiculous stuff that was not lore friendly. That's when I stopped caring. Like, you can't light speed skip. I'm like, I know, but it looks cool.
Yeah,
it's fun.
There's one really interesting bit that I heard discussed where it's like, with episode 9, you know, when they reveal that Rey's a Palpatine, it kind of, she has no reason to be tempted to the dark side anymore. Because the idea is like, a character's motivations to do something should be motivated by psychology. Mm-hmm. So the reason why Rey was tempted to the dark side in episode 8 is because, you know, she was abandoned as a child. She never knew her parents. So she always has this wound of like, you know, I'm an orphan. Like, there's a lot of implicit feelings of rejection that people who were abandoned have, like, you know, Steve Jobs in Jobs, or Steve Jobs in Steve Jobs. Yes. And there's the idea in episode 8 that like the dark side will give her an answer. So she's not reaching out to it because of any sort of intrinsic value the dark side has, but because she wants an answer so badly that if that presents one to her, she'll take it. Mm-hmm. But then when she does get the answer, like, you're a Palpatine, then it's like, oh, okay, well, I know who I am now. I don't have any... All my psychological issues are resolved. It doesn't really make... like...
more Steven...
But,
oh my god.
But it's like that question that's been gnawing at her whole life, that need that she's had to fill, is now filled. Mm-hmm. So she has nothing to tempt her to the dark side. You know what I mean? She already has her answer.
Yeah.
So then what you're saying is like the whole exercise where like you see her atop the Sith throne is like, it doesn't matter because like...
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because the whole thing... Well, my thing was, I found... I'm sorry I brought up Star Wars again, but I found that the answer of like, she's just like a regular nobody in the galaxy, and yet she has power, I found more interesting than any sort of lineage she could have.
Yeah.
It's just a more interesting option
and it's been established that
for this series.
And it's been established that works because all of the Jedi ostensibly come from nowhere, because Jedi are not allowed to have children. And, you know, Anakin Skywalker, the most powerful Jedi who ever lived, is, you know, just the son of a slave single mother with no father to speak of.
So and I guess it's also lore consistent then in that case.
Yeah.
plus like the idea of Ian McDiarmid at like 67 getting down with some alien hottie is just kind of strange. But also like it made sense as well because she goes down to the well and she finds that the dark side doesn't offer her anything. Mm-hmm. And then to just backpedal that in episode 9 and be like, oh no, you're related to this guy who you have no idea who that is because you were dead by the time he was around. And there's no, like...
You're a Palpatine. Like, I'm a who?
Yeah, you're a Palpatine. Who? Sheev Palpatine? Is that a girl? No, it's The Emperor. It's like but the Emperor is gone. The First Order is not like it's like the Empire Light.
Yeah.
Diet Empire. Like, what effect does Sheev Palpatine have? And the fact that like they set out to create, I don't know. It's weird because my problems aren't lore specific with it. It's storytelling specific.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But with all that said, if I could just take out that scene where it's like there were nobodies because they wanted to be nobody. No, that's not how it works. I can see Adam Driver just looking at those lines, rolling his eyes like,
I know.
Jesus Christ.
It's literally like, but in the last movie you said, it's like, I know what I said in the last movie, but actually... It's kind of like in Return of the Jedi when Luke talks to Obi-Wan's ghost, and he's like, "You said Darth Vader killed my father," and he's like, "Well, you know, he did kill your father in a poetic sort of way."
Oh my God, that's. Oh.
But
we should.
I was gonna say, going back to something where the character psychology is not a garbage fire and makes sense. Inception.
Yeah.
Circling back.
It's a good thing you did, because if you didn't, I was going. And you did it much more poetically than I could have.
Do you guys want to get into ratings, or do you have anything like further to say?
I didn't like Ellen Page at first, and now that I've seen it so many times, I like Ellen Page in the movie. Well, she has the difficult task of being the naggy character.
Yeah, that's true.
And like, it sucks to be that character. Like, guess what? People don't like the naggy character. So the fact that she comes off, like, especially the first time, like, I didn't hate her. Like, I didn't hate her like I don't like Marion Cotillard in the movie. Like, Ellen Page takes what she has and she makes it work a lot better. Like, her nagging is actual genuine concern. You understand where she's coming from, and how she can help. And she does a great job with a character that is kind of interesting, but, you know, isn't really given enough material to me. But like, the more I watch it, the more I appreciate that in her. And then, but the more I watch it, the more I really don't like Marion Cotillard as Maul. Like, I really just don't like her as a character in general in the movie.
I think, I don't know if this is I don't have any evidence to bear this out, but this is just a feeling. I feel like if you if the protagonist of your movie is the voice of reason, they're like, oh, he's so cool and so much smarter than all of the other characters because he's the voice of reason. Whereas if a side character is the voice of reason, you're like, stop nagging and shut up.
Well, but see, that's just it. Like, I feel like there's a way to do it, and like, Charlie Hunnam is the best Jiminy Cricket. Like, that's one of the reasons I like him in Triple Frontier. Like, there's a way to do it where they don't seem nagging and like so much like higher superior ground. Part of the problem in Inception is that Ellen Page's character is introduced to how the dream stuff works, and then like 3 minutes later, all of a sudden she's an expert and she can tell you why you're doing this wrong. Feels bad. It just doesn't feel like it was layered in very well, and I think that's one of the things that leads to a problem, script wise.
Yeah.
Because like, Arthur's clearly concerned about it a lot. He's like, oh, I'd hate to see out of control, and she does put it on him. It's like, well, why don't you go and tell Arthur about what's going on? And he's just like, oh no, I can't do it. Like, okay, all right, fine, then I guess she does have to go on it because we already paid Ellen Page's money, so book that ticket. But I do like Ellen Page in the movie. I think she does a really good job, as does Yusuf, which that was the first movie
who also has a very pronounced British accent despite being in not England.
Well, so Avatar was that guy's first movie, and Inception was his second movie, and I don't know if I've seen him in anything else.
I guess
But-
he's 2 for 2 on being
I mean-
massive financial successes.
Yeah, but like getting the SAG minimum.
But that means he's like a good luck charm. He needs to be thrown in more movies so that they'll also be big hits financially.
Yeah, I know, but now he's much more choosy about them. It's like M. Night Shyamalan's new script passes by, and he's just like, I was a fan of The Sixth Sense, but do I really want to do another pandery remake? I will pass on Glass. Like, I think everyone did that. I think Bruce Willis passed on half of that movie. Yeah, we can get into the ratings for Inception. Mike, why don't you go first?
It's a Nolan film. I gotta give it a shiny and chrome. It's a must-watch.
Yeah, I would
Gabe?
give it a shiny and chrome as well.
Yeah, we're gonna go 3 for 3 on shiny and chrome. It's weird because like it is almost practically perfect in every way, but like for me, it comes back to an issue with Peter Jackson movies. It's got some pacing issues.
Well, so I think the more interesting question is, how does this rank in terms of Christopher Nolan's filmography? Because I think to a lot of people, this is his best movie. You know, it's like it's either this or The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I think you guys know where I stand, but I'll go first just so that you know. My favorite Christopher Nolan film is The Prestige. I think that's the one where like everything is executed perfectly. Mm-hmm. Now, barring that, Inception's probably my second favorite Christopher Nolan film. So it's way up there. Like it's probably the Christopher Nolan film I've watched the most, and I think so many things work in it. And also, like, I do secretly like how kind of goofy Leonardo DiCaprio is in the movie. But that's where he stands. That's where it stands on my list on Chris Nolan more.
My opinion's pretty basic, but like I think Memento is probably my favorite Christopher Nolan movie, but then it's The Dark Knight and Inception.
Interesting. So why Memento?
I think it's the most formally interesting of all his movies, and I think its storyline is the most emotionally captivating to me.
Okay. I just quickly on Memento, I watched it once and I was like, I'll never have to watch this again. I know what the twist is. And then, like all Chris Nolan movies, I found myself watching it one day and I was like, God damn, this is one incredibly watchable, great movie.
Yeah,
Even though I know everything that's going to happen.
It's funny because, yeah, I've seen Inception more than any of his other movies, but I've still seen Memento 2 or 3 times, and I like it so much every time.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Like, Memento, I would say, is perfect in every way. Whereas, like, Dark Knight and Inception are almost perfect.
I don't know if I'd go that far with Memento. It's close, though.
What about you, Mike?
For me, it would definitely be a second. Dark Knight is my first favorite, obviously, because I'm a huge Batman fan. And it really like justifies my obsession with Batman, the whole dichotomy, but not really kind of thing. They're the same person.
Oh, just, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, because it definitely, like, I think I feel like every superhero has their, like, core subject matter that they tend to be good for, you know? And I think the core subject matter at the heart of Batman tends to skew very adult, just by nature of who the character is and the kind of bad guys that he deals with. It's a lot about crime, mental illness, like economics, social disparities, things like that. And I think Dark Knight is kind of the first instance of those themes being fully realized as like, this is what Batman can be about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with Mike on that.
Yeah. Well, it also has, I think, the best. I think it has the best action scenes in any Christopher Nolan movie too, because the opening bank heist is awesome. The Hong Kong extraction is really cool. And I for a long time I didn't give it as much credit as I should have, but the final scene where it's like the camera crew and the hospital workers are the terrorists and the terrorists are the hospital workers, like the way Batman goes through and systematically dismantles that whole thing is like the most Batman thing ever. And I love that scene.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's also an interesting thing with the Joker in that movie where he, unlike other iterations of the Joker, he almost seems to want to outdo Batman in a sense, where like almost all of the people he kills throughout the movie are criminals in some way, with the exception of like maybe Rachel, and although you can argue it was the mob that killed Rachel, not him. But like, you know, he kills gangsters, he kills corrupt politicians, like all the authority figures he kills are corrupt in some way, or they're compromised in some way, or they're engaged in some illegal activity. You know, he goes after the other people who pretend to be Batman, but you know, I mean, they're technically innocent, but they're vigilantes, so they're breaking the law in that way. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like he has his own vision of how to kind of clean the streets of Gotham City.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but also like the fact that the movie makes the parallel that they're actually not parallels; they're the same person, but Batman just doesn't kill people. Mm-hmm. Like that's a really interesting take on it as well. Like you have so many rules. I only have one rule. Motherfucker, I don't have any rules, and yet I'm doing a better job of cleaning up the streets of crime than you. Like that is an interesting take on the character. Well, plus I think Aaron Eckhart is like kind of underrated in that movie. Like out of all of the roles he's played in his career, that's the movie that it was like, oh yeah, Aaron Eckhart can act, and then he was in like Battle Los Angeles, and people were like, maybe not.
I, Frankenstein.
Yeah. Yeah, from the writer of fucking Collateral comes I, Frankenstein. Jeez, how the mighty fall.
But yeah, Dark Knight and then Inception, a close second, and then Memento for my third.
I think I've said this before. My problem with The Dark Knight being my favorite Christopher Nolan film is that there's just not enough Christopher Nolan in it. Like, there's not enough time manipulation stuff. There's a bit of puzzles, but it kind of takes a back seat. A lot of the stuff that I like in his movies kind of take back seats in Dark Knight Rises, and even Batman Begins. And so, like, there's some of my favorite superhero stuff. I think Dark Knight's probably the best Batman movie we will ever get. But, well, you know, except for Mask of the Phantasm, which is the best Batman movie. But, like, Dark Knight has a lot of cool moments and things like that. But, and, like, that's where he started doing his, like, insane set pieces.
Yeah.
It's just not, there's not... Like, all of the stuff he did in The Dark Knight, and he did well in Prestige, he kind of tries to, like you know, bring it together into Inception. Mm-hmm. Which doesn't succeed quite as well, but I still think it's, like... I would... If I had to watch The Dark Knight or Inception for the rest of my life, I'd probably choose Inception. Because it also has Ken Watanabe. And he's... and, you know, even though I don't understand half of his lines... Like, my favorite is when he's like, when they're like, I think we're gonna have to buy out like the whole of the airplane. We'll have to buy the airplane, buy the crew, buy all the seats in the passengers. He's like, I'm about to do that line. Like what did you say, dude? What? Like,
I was gonna say I've avoided breaking out my Ken Watanabe accent just because it's horribly offensive.
I know,
but it is hard to understand what he says.
Like when, like in the very beginning of it, he's like, what was it? There was something, it was after the audition, or I think it was like when he was like on the carpet. He's like, I've made love on this carpet many times, but I know that is wool, not polyester, or something like that. There's a line very early on. I was watching it with my fiance, and she turned to me. She's like, "What did he say?" And I was like, "Yeah, I had a feeling you're gonna ask me that."
Yeah, I still can't understand what he's saying on that line.
I know. Any last thoughts on Inception before we put it to bed?
Mm-mm.
All right. Well. All right. And that is Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
Wait.
Oh my God, you're right. Dude, how could I forget?
Our podcast is available on iTunes or Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. Be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review. Our website is underthewheels.wixsite.com/blog. We got the podcast there as well as articles and stuff. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, which is links to everything. And obviously, thank you, Mike, for our awesome theme music. I think on our last podcast, I was singing the praises of our theme music versus other podcasts having kind of like boring corporate sounding, like bleep bloop electronic stuff. Whereas Under the Wheels has actual music as its theme music, which is great. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, we definitely do. You already plugged the email address, and you can make sure you search for us on Facebook as well.
Oh yeah, underthewheelspodcast@gmail.com is our email address.
Yeah. Send us some messages, write us reviews, listen to the episodes like Mike does. Yeah, and if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go and watch Inception on Netflix. Other than that, I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And I'm Mike.
And you've just been Under the Wheels. You guys both rewatched Inception before this, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I watched it last
Yes,
night.
I watched it yesterday.
Okay. I'm excited to get into it, honestly. Like, as I was watching it, I was like, God damn it, I wish Gabe and Mike were here right now, because I'm ready to just start going into it. So I think I've forgotten more about what I wanted to talk about than I remember, but it'll work. We'll
you don't take notes?
I didn't take notes, no.
I mean, neither did I, but Matt strikes me as the note-taking type.
No, I don't. There was this one guy. He's the person who's watched like the most movies on the planet, and he died like 5 or 10 years ago. And he was saying that when he watches a movie, he didn't start until he was like 30, and when he
had never seen a movie until he was 30.
Yeah, it was something like he hadn't really started watching movies until he was 30, just because he didn't have time. He was doing this or that. But when he did start watching it, he would watch 2 movies a day, and he would take extensive notes on them as he watched them. And I was like, oh, I should probably start doing something like that. But I don't. I don't do that. But like, that's passion right there. It's like, man.
I don't know. My view is memory's the only filter you need. If you can't remember it, it probably wasn't worth remembering.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I like that. I almost watched it twice, but I didn't want to sit through another 2.5 hours.
I know, it's so You know, it's funny. It's just this is the one thing that stopped me from seeing Avengers Endgame, is that like every time I would plot a trip to the theater, I'd be like, okay, I can see it at this time or this time, and then in my mind it's like, wait, that means when it's over, it'll be 3.5 hours after this starts.
Yeah.
Do I really want to do that?
That's the thing about like the 3-hour movie. There was a reason why it used to be like a road show only thing with like an intermission, because it felt special when you did that. Like, yeah, it was more expensive, and yeah, you were basically paying more money to see a movie you could see in like a week at a reduced, but there was something special about like, oh, it's going out for a night on the town. Like,
yeah,
we're talking about
it's like,
theater.
I have no problem with 2.5 hour plus movies at home, because I can sort of, they're there when I want them. I can, pause them to go cook dinner or something. It's why, like, I don't think I would ever watch, a Tarkovsky movie in a theater, but I own a few, and I've seen a few, and it's a lot easier at home.
Yeah. Well, you saw Silence in theaters, right?
I did.
Yeah. That thing was long.
Yeah.
But it felt worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if I know a movie's going to be really long, I have to like dehydrate myself before I go in. Like, I have to do like a weight cut to make sure I don't have to use the bathroom while I'm watching the movie.
Oh no!
I think for the first time I saw Avengers, I made sure to wait like at least a half an hour before I even touched my Coke, because I was like, I'm gonna drain this thing and go to the bathroom right in the middle when something important happens.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I also don't bring in any food or purchase any food or drinks.
I know, dude. You're hurting the theater market, especially like the Edwards Cinema. Like, they could use the money, man.
Ugh, they already have my.
Dude, every time I go, large popcorn, 2 large drinks.
Holy shit, dude!
Damn, son, it's like a.
Wait,
but I go with Claire, so.
You might as well go to the theater or the opera. You're spending so much money.
Wow, Gabe. Wow. Yeah, I guess you. I thought. See here, I thought Mike bought like 2 drinks for himself because he's just like, I need the Coke, man.
No. I can't drink that much. I do get a refill on the way out, though.
I do too. I just actually go through like 2 large drinks.
I usually just go home
Yeah.
dehydrated and then drink like a gallon of water when I finally get back.
Gotta make it healthy on us. Damn.
This is like, this is the first like liquid I've had all day.